Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out, thanks and appreciation to Moon Harvest, Amish Earther, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMals24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKinnon, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Khan, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Henrik86, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
What are you talking about? How? I don't find that the problem at all.
But
Everybody
I didn't say it's a problem.
and they wait for everybody to stop, and then we all talk at the same time. And what are you gonna do?
I think that's good because it shows Nathan's got like a really good show where people are keen to participate, right? So I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Who sent this video to review? So I just clicked on it. It's one of it's a Flat Earth Debate show. 197. Tim Ossman down and Brenda's balls up. Okay. And that. John Sheldon. Okay. We'll find out when Jam gets here. Oh, he's already here. Let's just let him in. Hey, John. Hear me?
Hey.
Hey.
Yes.
What's the dealio with this then? We got to review that video. 21-minute mark.
Oh yeah, it's got like old arguments in it that we used to hear, but don't hear so much now.
Okay. I'm down for that. If you want to do the preamble, is it worth covering in the live show, right?
I don't know about the live show because it is, anti-flat earthers you're dealing with, but it's definitely interesting. It's worth listening to some of the stuff that they got away with back in the day.
Somebody being attacked in the background, or?
No, it's my littlest one. He's wanting a Pop-Tart.
No, there was a deep voice. maybe it was just your youngest being really gruff.
Yeah, it had to be him. Nobody else is awake yet.
Enough. How old's your youngest?
1.5.
Oh, okay. That's pretty young.
Yeah, I run the gambit from 17 to 1.5.
God, I can think of nothing worse. I mean, yes, I'm sure they're all a true blessing. Apple of your eye. Beauty personified.
Well, see, after you get to 3, you can't get any more chaos. Like, I guess it's sort of like entropy. There's only just so much entropy that can happen at one time. There's like a speed limit of chaos.
Just keeping track of them. I would be scared that I'd lose one.
No, I constantly count when I go out.
Okay. If you only got 2, you don't have to do that. It's just like, where are they?
Lose one what? Children?
Yeah.
I've lost a couple. It was one time, it was scary, but I just yelled my son's name out. I was in a mall, and he heard me. crazy. And then another time, see, you got to watch the gypsies because they're very, they're scammers. They're schemers, real scammers. And they tried to distract my wife while my other son was like running along the side. And I seen it happening. Like they were trying to grab him. It's my son Josiah. We lost him about 3 or 4 times. Thank God he's 18 now.
Yeah, we had that happen once. So we had my eldest's birthday party, and Clover was about 1.5, and there was a point where both me and my wife got distracted, and we're watching the pinata, and a load of kids are smacking the pinata. We turn around, it's 20 seconds later, and Clover's vanished. Where the hell is she? So everything stops. Everybody starts sprinting around looking for a essentially missing 1.5-year-old child. And after about, I don't know, 5 minutes of searching, we found that she'd wandered off into one of the closest buildings and wandered up halfway up a set of stairs. So one of the neighbours' youngest daughters was like, I found her. She's on the stairs. I'm like, grab her, grab her, grab her. She didn't. So I had to sprint over and grab her. But yeah, I found out afterwards that like a whole bunch of people had just walked past her. And she's not a quiet kid. She makes a hell of a lot of noise no matter what she's doing. But yeah, people had just walked past this small baby on the stairs. I was quite horrified to find that out afterwards. But then again, we lost track of her, so you can't really complain about people walking past some random baby.
You're right. It's very easy because, like another time when they were going to school, he had just wandered into the playground, and you're talking about thousands of kids, and we can't find Josiah.
Right.
Very scary. But the mall one was the scariest one because, geez. But I always instructed them that no matter what, you stay there and you wait, and I'll find you. Don't be looking for me. But in that instant, when he heard my voice, he came towards my voice.
Right.
The child hears the father's voice. Another voice they will not follow.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, we got technology today. We can put air tags on our kids.
I hadn't thought of that. To be honest, I haven't been let out of either of our sites since whenever, the only exception being when we put them into like private classes that we have for them. So obviously well vetted private classes where we know the teachers and the group reasonably well before we'll leave them in their charge. But with that exception, they're just always with us basically. Why wouldn't they be? They can't fend
Yeah, well,
for
we used to
themselves.
leave them in church.
They don't leave them in
Sorry
church.
about that. No, when we used to leave them in church, you would have to tell them, listen, you got to watch him. They'd be like, no, we don't want to do it. I said, no, you got to watch him. Funny.
Yeah, I don't have to tell my kids stuff like that. I just would rather they're not in that circumstance. When the oldest one's getting to that age now where we can start telling her about things that are a little bit more scary. But you don't want to have to, really, do you?
I lost the 1.5-year-old in the grocery store day before yesterday because the 3-year-old was like taking my attention away. And I had my head turned for maybe 10 seconds.
Yep.
But I run around the corner. I run around the corner and he's climbed into someone else's shopping basket trying to get their food out of it.
Yeah, they've got absolutely no sense of danger at that age. So, like I say, 30 seconds tops watching a pinata, maybe swapping over one kid to the next pinata, you turn around, oh dear, a child's vanished. The only upside being they can't actually get that far. They can't stick their thumb out and hitchhike yet.
The panic's real though for those minutes or two that they're gone.
Oh hell yeah!
You know what I mean?
Oh, I've never been more panicked.
No doubt about it.
But this is one of the things, right? So when you watch the crime stories of the parents that have, off their kids, basically, to put it bluntly, and then they're in front of the cameras because the police have told them to do a press conference, and they're relatively nonchalant, talking in past tense, things of that nature. You're like, I always think back for that, whatever it was, it can't have been very long, maybe a couple of minutes, but life had just ended. You know, you've got so much adrenaline coursing through you. I would imagine that any parent that's, you know, in that situation for real, as opposed to for nefarious reasons, would just be so frazzled after about a day or two. They'd just be drained. Do you know what I mean? No sleep, just non-stop stress continually. Like I say, my body couldn't cope with it after a couple of minutes. You know, you're just so drained afterwards that you're like, why? How could anybody cope with that if somebody actually did kidnap their child? Just think, how do you cope
It's
with
the
that?
scariest moment
Yeah.
ever.
Exactly.
And you're not going to be able to speak. I know what you're talking about, the people that, did it them. They were responsible for their children missing. You could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be talking to two comatose people.
Normally it's a reflection by way of someone else who's at the press conference, like there's the grandparents there, and the grandparents are absolutely distraught and doing all the things that you would expect of the parents to be doing, whereas the parents are fairly calm and, you know, we'd rather you all left us alone, give us our distance. And you're like, what? Not, let's get this over with. I want to get back out there looking. No.
Just to change the subject real quick, I noticed something in this debate we're going to be, if we look at it, the vector of down. How would you establish that angle for gravity?
Are you looking for more and more roads to a flat Earth? I love it. Okay, you're going to need a flat Earth for that. I haven't really processed it yet, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Right, because they're saying things are falling to the ground at a 90-degree angle, straight down. I don't think you can get 90 degrees straight down on a ball.
I see what you're saying, but they're also bringing it back in school. They're doing it as they call it, experiments. They're dropping two things at the same time: a feather and a brick, or a hammer and whatever else, and they all hit the floor at the same time.
Well, that's why they're all
Gravity.
going to the center of mass, right? Because they have to do everything from the center, right? Everything has to be with respect to the plane of reference.
Perhaps that's how they do it with the maths. I don't know. But perhaps it is with respect to the centre of Earth, and the plane of reference would be 90 degrees to the centre of Earth on the, what would that be, equatorial plane?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I bring it up is because Brenda's arguing what up and down are, right?
Do you want to have a listen?
And yeah, if you want to, yeah.
I got it queued up.
Point. Let me just.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, what Nick shows in this video by Phuket Word is that by adding salt to the water, it changes the density of the water, and it's effectively exactly the point I've just made with regards to the different densities of the airs, or the products that are in the middle in between. And basically, you can make the egg change its position just by changing the density of the water to make the egg more buoyant or less buoyant. And it's the same thing here, but there is no gravity required to do this.
Very loose, fast and loose terminology back then, wasn't it? More or less buoyancy in the egg, Anthony. What the hell was he on about?
No, it's not involved. The gravity is not changed. As I said, what gravity does is basically and it's not literally force, but basically cause the way it separates and the speed with
when does Brenda make an appearance?
Increase or decrease.
Big shout out to for the super chat. Hello, exit. Indeedy.
The centrifuge, that's much
Don't tell me you
much
don't have a
faster than
timestamp,
gravity,
John.
then that separation
Again?
will go a lot faster. They do.
I said, don't tell me John doesn't have a timestamp. That's
No, no.
usually how I do it.
I just mean, is it towards the
Well-
end, or is maybe
That
just
is
beginning
what
now?
gravity does.
What I'm saying is, if you can
Well,
alter the density
pops
of different
in
items, different
That's a
layers,
good point.
you make things.
Okay.
move. Now, gravity
No, you
isn't
just
part of it.
change the density, causing the distribution of the layers to change. That is what you do.
Right, but the eggs physically moved position without any gravity changing.
No, but it's not related.
Exactly. So this argument over down being the representation of gravity isn't true. Gravity is not a perception of up or down. It's simply the displacement of different densities within the medium that it's in. The egg
I
is
would agree with that.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Well,
It's just
No-
not
no
related.
gravity is
No,
needed,
the
that's
gravity is still there. Look, if the gravity or a force that would
Am I okay to let this play out for maybe 2 minutes if I step away?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was. This
Yeah,
is
let
just
it
the
play out.
context. This is just the context for when Brenda steps in, and it'd be kind of odd just to hear her making claims without hearing why she did.
Sure, but if I step away, just while I'm setting stuff up, I just don't want you to, by setting stuff, I mean getting a drink. I just don't want you to say, oh, stop. I'll just leave it playing for a couple of minutes.
artificially
Oh, yeah.
create more gravity, like in a centrifuge, would be used in this setup, then the egg, whatever that is, would move a lot faster as you change the density of the layers by adding salt. That is
maybe
just
but the problem we have is we can't vary the gravity to change to test.
no.
it.
You can with a centrifuge. If you put this
You're not
setup in a
varying the gravity,
centrifuge,
though, are
then
you?
the I just explained this to you.
Yeah, but you're not varying the gravity. What you're doing is
No, but
adding a new
It
force.
is like gravity. It's basically the same effect. It's not saying that gravity is centrifuge, but it does seem to have the same type of properties as acceleration, which gravity basically comes down to. That's also part of the formula. It's like how fast do things accelerate in their fall in a normal air environment.
Okay.
It's if you have inertia and movement. But what if you're still?
Once everything's perfectly organized, I'll start working on my thesis.
Grammarly will ensure.
Sorry?
It's if you have inertia or movement in the centrifuge, like you said. Well, what if the object's still and at rest? Without any movement?
You're breaking up a bit. I can't really make out what you're saying. Sorry, Billy.
Just saying, what if the object is still and at rest and not in movement?
Then the layers have settled to their natural divisions.
Very interesting. Very deep topic, too, by the way.
Yeah, but like the discussion yesterday, that reminded me. I also told this to Nathan before the hangout started. Reminded me of physics class, and yeah, I remembered that, and it is true. It's just that is what gravity does. Density, buoyancy, it uses the gravity as a baseline. Without gravity being there, and you can't really halt it. That's the problem. You can only aggravate it or put other gravity alike forces onto something and negate it here on Earth. But the gravity is still part of the workings of density and buoyancy. Theoretically, if it wasn't there, then the layers would not divide. Everything would just float randomly in its position, and only surface tension would be it would be an effect to it.
Well, obviously, they've developed a method to have so-called anti-gravity devices.
No, I haven't seen proof of that. There's magnetic levitation and all that stuff, but that's still
Right.
very localized. That's all very theoretical. We haven't seen any proof of that so far. Anti-gravity.
Well,
Yeah,
back in
but-
the early 1900s, Tesla demonstrated that he can repel aluminum with frequency. A sheet of aluminum and suspend it up off of the table. In
But
early
that's not
experiments.
cymatics.
Well, like I said, the aluminum has
Cymatic, that's like causing a vibration to basically use the vibration to forcefully displace an item or an object into a
Well-
specific frequency band.
This is my question to the people that I haven't.
Hello.
Hey, Naomi.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Good
Nice
have
to
you.
see you all.
Hey, on how they're suspending these sun simulators. I don't know how they're doing it. Maybe with the balloons. I don't know how they're doing it.
Well, they obviously, if there really is, look, some simulator and some, it all depends on what they really mean with it. The thing is, they are still onto the globe system narrative. So to us,
Yes,
are they creating another type of holographic sun disk some way? Because they have physically figured out how that mechanism, how the globe of the heavens really works? Or are they just using a device that can locally create a very powerful lamp that emulates the effects of sunlight? We
Hi,
don't
Brenda.
know.
How you doing? Good to have you.
It could mean anything.
Hi, Brenda.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Hey,
Oh, this one gets awesome.
Brenda, Ellen.
So where? Yes.
Oh,
This is when they were friendly.
nice bunny.
Continue on.
Oh, I thought you
Just
were
out of
going to ask a
interest,
question.
is that a beaver?
It's a
No.
mole. It looks like a mole, or a.
You're talking
mole.
about me?
Yeah,
or a
yeah. What's your
mole.
thumbnail?
Maybe
Naked
a mole.
mole rat. Naked mole rat.
Naked mole rat. Okay, I
Looks
was a mile
very
off.
lovely.
Oh,
Yes, it's the only eusocial mammal where they have a hive similar to bees and ants. They have one queen that reproduces, and the rest of the females are sterile workers.
Really?
It's kind of an interesting case.
And
They
it's
also
a
don't
mammal?
feel pain. Yeah, it's a mammal.
That is really bizarre.
They
Yeah.
also don't. They also don't get cancer, right?
Yeah, and they don't feel pain.
What?
They don't feel pain. Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. I don't know. That's how. Yeah, that's what they say. Anyways, that they don't They seem to have lost the capacity to feel pain in their external nervous system, in their peripheral nervous system,
Wow.
due to their environment, living underground in a low oxygen environment.
So they're like not surface creatures burrowing, but they're like really deep earth creatures.
Yeah, they typically will never see the surface in their entire life.
Wow.
It's
That is
impossible on a
breathe.
globe.
unique.
Yeah, and they breathe with an atmosphere where there's only like 5% oxygen in the air or something like that.
So they're
Pretty-
very how do you say
Specialized.
yeah.
This mole rat is on
Very,
the side. We're getting ready to get into it.
Carbon dioxide resistant, probably.
Yeah, and I think
They're
that they
gonna
said
recycle their breathing
Carbon
with a
dioxide
lot of carbon
resistant.
dioxide there.
I don't know what
And
that
that has
is.
something to do with their incapacity for pain, because apparently just having that kind of I can't remember the details anymore, but it's pretty interesting if you want to look into it.
I guess they eat roots a lot. Then
Yeah, they eat
bugs.
No, they don't eat bugs. They're rodents, so they're vegetarian. They eat the roots of certain like tubers, basically.
Huh.
Kind of like
Fascinating.
potato type roots that exist they exist in the African savanna, I think.
well, that's a good way to stay out of the sun.
Yeah,
Interesting tactic.
yeah, it's a very strange case. Very strange animal.
Okay.
So
I don't know. I just
So
I'm
let's
fascinated with it when I chose the picture, but it's kind of, I don't know, just something that interested me at some point in time, like many other things.
Right.
Sure.
let's get back to the subject. Brandon,
Gravity.
you gonna ask something?
Gravity.
Yes.
Up and down. Do you understand up and down yet?
Yeah.
What do you understand about up and down?
Well, that seems to be the division in which the
What?
No one has anything to say about up and downs.
Well, Arwen
Yes.
was saying something, and then he stopped.
I truly believe up and down. Absolutely. But with relativism, there is no up or down.
Why are we're getting
sniped?
Well, it could be the mobile phones.
Just for clarity, what's happening here is because I back then used to publish the link that you guys currently in G Plus get daily. That would go out to the public. What would happen is people would join the show and then go into Google Hangouts, which was separate from Google Hangouts on Air, and they would snipe whoever was talking so that only ballers could be heard. They'd either mute you or physically kick you out the show and take over the stream. That's what they would do. So what's happening now is while I'm trying to keep the conversation going, I'm also, as you could probably see on screen, fighting to eject people who want to take over the stream. That's what it took to keep a public stream going back then. Anyway, I'm happy to cover this in the live show, actually, John. Now we're into it and we've got the preamble in the pre-show. That's actually quite appropriate. And I've been meaning to cover a old flat earth debate for a while. So today's the day. We've got the build-up for those who watch the after show later on the public streams or for the members later. I think it's a good point to just stop now that we've got all of the hairless mole rats out of the way.
Was Owen still in gravity, or was he just having a conversation with him?
No. Owen was pro-gravity at the time, so Owen was not wow. It's just that's how things get thrashed out. You have to have somebody to take the positive position that's not a fundamentalist zealot, so that you can fight the pro position. Well, there's a reason Owen's good at what he does, and this is the beginnings of seeing what Baldwin, as we call him now, was back then. Now, was it to say that he's taking a devil's advocate stance in this moment? No, he wasn't. No. He's coming out of the paradigm, and when you hear plenty of other flat earthers, we fight against them fairly frequently at the moment, for whatever reason, who are talking about downward bias. Well, you can understand that feast of nonsense is going through Arwen's digestive system, and he's just regurgitating parts of the feast of nonsense hors d'oeuvre I've described a couple of days back. But he's picking out the globe aspects of it and parroting them back rather than the delicious olivey flat Earth bit. You know what I mean? That's all that's happening. But that's how you come to. I felt privileged to listen to those conversations, Neil. I learned a lot. So.
I've only heard Owen from one side, and I've only heard him act out Baldwin. I never heard him when he was pro baller. That's all I'm wowing.
He's not pro baller. There's no way I could ever describe Arwen in the entire time I've ever known him as being anything other than a devout flat earther. That's not the case. It's just when you're educated in there being a downward bias, not appreciating that there simply isn't one, then you're gonna fight for that paradigm that you've been indoctrinated with, aren't you? Well, like I say, that's how you come to conclusions where things are right or aren't right, and you've got to kind of go through that process to get there. So, like I say, I felt very privileged to take part in those discussions, Neil. Just putting it on the record. Now we are joined by, let's see, Neil, Refracted Curvature, 10th Man, Righteous Force, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Let's get it on.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you all. Please share the show, as I said in the intro. We're going to be covering an old flat Earth debate today. So if you're a member, you can check this out after the recording ends and I publish it to members, which will be today, after the live stream ends, obviously. You can see the preamble or build up to this, which is a bit weird because we're kind of critiquing our own stuff from many years ago, which is fine. But a very early flat Earth debate show. So it's Flat Earth Debate 197, I believe. And as I say, the sort of build up to the discussion that we're about to cover is in the pre-show. Now we're at the point where the flatties, that would be Arwen and Anthony, along with a little bit of, I've forgotten his name now, Nummy, I think he was called. They've all had their sort of pre-discussion, and now we've got the baller, which is Brenda, entering the fray, and we don't actually know what's going to happen next. My memory doesn't serve me for what happened yesterday, so I have the chance to me remembering how this conversation went pretty much zero. But nevertheless, this has been picked out by John, or refractive curvature, I should say. So do you want to give us a little preamble like Tenth would normally do, John, in terms of why you've picked this for us to cover today?
Well, we've been talking about gravity a lot, and we have the Ethereum faction, the upward rising Earth, and then the ballers. This is how gravity gets worked into a conversation, and it's some of the tricks that are used to get it as a presupposition within the conversation. I thought it was a pretty good example of them.
Okay. Well, may as well ask the housekeeping questions to sort of, I don't know, offer something in housekeeping that goes along with the subject matter. So, any scientific evidence of gravity? No go at once.
Are you saying are you looking for an evidence of gravity? My name is Matt.
Any scientific evidence?
Right. So if not gravity, then how do we explain the increasing pressure of the depth of water? I mean, that seems like a pretty solid form of gravity, right?
You tell me.
You
tell me that you're saying that, number one, is this scientific evidence of gravity?
Yeah, so I would think that I don't know. Gravity sounds like a pretty good way to explain it. You got the water above the water. Let's say you have 100-foot depth of water. At 10 foot, we can measure 10 foot pushing down on it. But also the width, the side pressure is kind of equal. The side pressure is going to be, the same. But if you start to get deeper and deeper and deeper, then the all around surface pressure becomes equal to the pressure of the water, right? Like that's what I've gone to really deep waters and just dove deep, and the pressure definitely is pushing on me.
Okay.
Is that
I heard.
Is there any other force that can explain that?
Well, that's pressure. You said it about 6 times.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but the pressure would be due to the weight of the water. Is that not?
Hold on.
Do you think about that part?
Because it's in all directions.
Hold on 1
You
second.
just described it as pushing in
Hold on
on
1
you.
second, John. Just because you're new. How do you say your name, first of all? Hello?
Oh, no, I'll get off of there.
How do you say your name?
Sorry, I'm having some phone clicky problems. All right, I should be able to talk.
What's your name?
My name is Matthew.
Matthew, sorry, you did say. When someone's replying
Yes,
to you,
sir.
if you can just pop yourself on mute, just so we don't get audio feedback, that'd be wonderful. Just go ahead, John, refractive curvature.
Okay.
Thank you, Matthew.
Right. You already stated that the pressure is pushing in from all directions.
We've got 3 seconds into you responding, and immediately we've got audio feedback because he hasn't popped himself on mute yet. Can you pop yourself on mute so that we can actually hear the response to your water stuff? Thanks. Go ahead, refractive curvature, 3rd time's a charm.
You already said that the pressure is pushing in all directions as you go down in the water. So it's not down. It is pushing in on you from all directions, not just down. So why would you think it's just down?
Oh yeah, okay. That's a good way to put it. So the water is staying at a level. There's a level where we can say that's the surface of the water. So the water there has gone down as far as that water can. It can't go any further below if there's water below it. So that water that's below it should only have the force of the water that's above it acting on it. That is the part that's, literally blowing down. And because it's a fluid, you're definitely experiencing the pressure from all directions because of what I consider would be the weight of, the cubic feet of water that are above it. I don't know. We're just talking about gravity, so that's kind of where I started.
No,
with
we're not. We're not. We're talking about pressure.
Now.
We're not. You just, at the end of your discussion about pressure and water and what it does, you've said, and now we're talking about gravity. No, we're not. At no point did you mention gravity in your description of the water pressure. It isn't gravity. But we're asking for scientific evidence thereof. I mean, obviously that isn't it. That's just a description of pressure that you've given. But is there any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yes, sir. So I'm attributing the cause of the pressure to gravity.
Yeah, I realise.
So
Yes, I realise, my friend. You
Okay.
appreciate that science deals with cause and effect. You appreciate that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what you are doing is arbitrarily ascribing gravity to this effect you're describing with water and its pressure. Yeah, with science, you don't arbitrarily ascribe effects with things like gravity, which doesn't exist. You establish cause and effect through experimentation. Hence me asking for scientific evidence. So when you just tell me about your arbitrarily ascribing gravity to the descriptions you gave, that's not scientific evidence, is it?
Yeah, you make a good point there. And I think a big part of the reason I came to this and that I've been listening to you guys is because there may be like a leap. There's a distance between the principles that I'm using to explain everything and the effects that we're getting.
Okay. What
Water
effects?
seems to sit on a level.
What effects?
What
We
effects?
know that part. So I'm just gonna like withdraw. But
what effects are you talking about? Because that's what science is interested in, specifically in effects.
Yeah.
And their causes. That's why we ask for
right.
scientific
So
evidence
the
of gravity.
effect that keeps the water from being above the boat. So there's a reason that the water is on a level and it's below something else. If that's not gravity, or some sort of bias, right? Because that's what we keep going back to. I've heard the word downward bias several times. I never really knew what we were getting to with that, besides maybe an alternate explanation of the phenomenon that we've been all taught, that is gravity, where things are down. If nothing is resisting it, it's going to go down. So we have a flat level of water, and then upon that, if we disrupt that, we get, Bernoulli's principle and floating, because the water wants to be the lowest thing versus these two things. The boat should be above me, the water needs to be below me. We can observe that, and if you continue to go down deeper in the water, yeah, we get pressure. But
Can I point something out to you about what you just said that's a bit confusing?
Is just the fact that this is the go ahead.
Well, first of all, gravity is not a force in the rhetoric of heliocentrism. It hasn't been in over 100 years. But further to that, invoking sea level as a horizontal plane, where you said flat, the water's flat, where do you get center of mass for that in what your description of a force would be?
Center of mass. This is the force. Maybe I'm not seeing exactly what you're saying there. You're asking me. There's definitely matter above it. So the mass of the water. Yeah, go ahead. Wait.
Right. Gravity, when it's described as a force, is mass attracts mass, correct?
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Okay,
That's the
so
formula.
the center of
Right.
one mass is drawn to the center of another mass, but you just described how the water is flat and level. Where do you get a center of mass to justify that statement?
Oh. Okay.
There is an answer. It's not rhetorical.
No, I got that. That was just a different question that I was looking for, sir. So the center, I'm just saying, is going to be, as far as my perspective as a person being here, because I really can't do any much more than where I'm standing, but my perspective is obviously a perpendicular line straight to the matter below that water, or the matter that I'm standing on, because being that it touches the horizon on all sides, that matter is significantly more matter than everything else that's sitting on top of it. So I understand that at some point there's a center of mass there. The concept of the perfect ball, and that if that perpendicular line was always perpendicular to the circumference line of that ball, then we would experience the same thing as if it was flat. Like I might be flat. I may just see it on flat because it's going to look the same from my eyeballs if I'm standing on that and only able to see parallel to the surface or perpendicular straight up. If I was on yonder ball, from my perspective, they're going to look the same. So I say the understood center of mass is just what I'm standing on. And I know that's kind of a limited, that may seem like kind of a dodge, but it's really not. If the water is there present in front of me, it's trying to get low. The lowest it can get is all of it being where it
I've
is
got to
and
stop
being
you
flat.
before you launch into this for a third time.
Okay.
Sorry. He's asking you, you've just rephrased it slightly to perpendicular. Okay. But you said perpendicular to the ball. How'd you get that? Is his question. Maybe you want to repeat your question again, John. Or refractive curvature.
Right. Right. You have invoked a center of mass, drawing things to it, right? Mass, the center of mass, one mass being drawn to the center of another mass. But then you've used parallel, perpendicular. You've described only flat planes. You have not described a sphere to be drawn to the center of. You see the problem?
That's true. Yep. I haven't done any of those things because the perspective that I live at is a big old flat world. And I know that gravity, if written as the equation is, can't be that way here, because otherwise at the North Pole, we'd have much more of a gravitational pull than we would at the South Pole if that was all the mass that we're looking at, right?
I'm going to stop you. I'm really sorry before we move up to the North Pole. I said earlier, I did interject and say the question wasn't rhetorical. Now, you've semi-answered it in the way you've said, well, we have to accept that we've got parallel and perpendicular. But you were asked where you get your centre of mass from. Well, that's still a question on the table. It wasn't rhetorical. You have actually answered it, maybe unbeknownst to you, where you got it from within your answer already, but maybe you just don't appreciate where you got those concepts to apply to then infer that there's going to be a gravitational pull at the top of the North Pole. You need to actually get that from somewhere first. Do you understand his question? It's still on the table for you to answer.
Okay. Geez, I'm not trying to be dodgy. So let's say his question, your question, sir, directly was, where is the center of mass that's causing, let's say, the ocean to stay where it is? Is that the question?
No. Given that you have described all of your descriptions of the Earth with perpendicular, parallel, flat plane, you have done that. Not me. You. Where are you getting a center of mass to have the center of mass drawing the center of mass? I can tell you if you need me to.
It's an excellent question.
I really want to steal John's thunder. I'm having to hold myself back from doing so no one else is going to be doing it either, Neil. Just let John hold the mic and ask his questions. Go ahead, Matthew. Did you hear the last question or do you need it repeating?
Yeah, it was right there. And then you had a little bit of chatty, right? We're okay. Yeah, I'm presuming that there's more mass than I can really wrap a ruler around that is supposed to be right below me. And I really feel like the perspective of the place that I'm looking at and I've always been on seems pretty flat. But so
that's the answer.
That's it. That's the mass.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Correct answer. Do you want to just affirm his answer, John? Refracted curvature. That's correct. That was the correct answer, same as the first time you gave it. Go ahead, John.
Right. This idea is built from, I'm echoing a little bit, sorry. The idea is built from the equatorial plane, right? So there is no center of mass. It is only a concept. So you built a force on a concept of a flat plane. And that's the problem. You don't have a center of mass. There's no such animal within this description. So when you describe it as a force, of mass attracting mass, you're no longer talking about reality.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild. I mean, that's quite a diversion from whatever you guys might have been about to talk about, because I know you had a whole thing planned a minute ago.
On the contrary.
But see, that's a good point.
Not at all. That was precisely what was discussed in the pre-show before the live show started. So the revelation that we typically discuss recently is that all roads lead to a flat earth, as we would describe it. Well, the gentleman you were speaking to earlier, refracted curvature, John, was detailing exactly this with respect to gravity, and how gravity also uses a flat plane to derive those concepts of now out of date by 107 years, mass attracting mass in Newtonian form, or the new hotness of Einsteinian, the uneven distribution of mass causing the bending and warping of space-time. Either way, we were discussing the requirement for a flat plane in the former instance in the pre-show. So no, that was where we were going. The video that we're going to cover is discussing some of the older ideas of gravitation. We just haven't got there yet. But I'm very pleased that you piped up, Matthew. Thank you very much.
May I ask Matthew, or give a comment to Matthew?
If John's done,
because
I'm pretty sure he is, unless he wants to give a summary.
You done?
Yeah, I'm still over here. I'm trying to get switched from my phone over to a computer, though. But you're welcome to ask. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. You know what I observed is you seeking an answer to a good question. And I saw a battle happening in your mind of what theoretical knowledge has been imposed on us since birth about gravity versus your own experience empirically. You were describing empirical experience, perpendicular, flat, all these things, but it was battling with the infusion of this false gravity that's been infused in us since birth. And it was interesting to see you go through that once John asked you good questions.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. That's fun to do. I think we got to let ourselves kind of fight with this stuff to get anywhere with it. And that's with a lot of different types of discussions. If you're basing your argument, like you said something really good earlier, Nate. If I base my argument on something that I've read rather than experienced, I'm not going to get anywhere because I am kind of parroting it. But if I say, hey, I was out on this lake, damned if it looked pretty flat, and I've driven past the coast, that's kind of what I've got to work with, and I've been in a plane before, describe back from there. Like, let's work back from there rather than pretending, because I'm not dumb. Definitely know all these physics equations, and they're observable to a point where you can get down with some experiments. But I agree that the whole problem with this gravitational field, or however they're trying to describe it now, because I think when I was a kid, we've still read that it was a field that permeates all things, all ways, as long as it's consistent of matter. That's kind of what I've seen so far, right? That's what they've. But Tim, did you just say that they've changed the definition of it?
Yeah, about 107 years ago.
Lord of mercy. Okay. Well,
What level?
Thanks for having me.
Without being rude, what level were you educated to?
Oh, I got 2 senior years of high school, and then I got 2 years of computer programmer and another 2 years of community college.
Was the community college scientific in nature?
No, I was trying to be a tutor
all right.
for
That's all I
the
need to
degree
know.
I just got.
Okay, so as far as you are concerned, gravity is a force, correct? Just yes.
Yeah.
Most
You know
people
what?
would
Yes.
just answer yes because most people are taught throughout their earlier years in education that is the case right up until they graduate. Now, if you go into...
If I were to say gravity, we look at 2 pieces of mass, and there is work done on them because they're supposed to be moving towards each other.
Is that so?
The lock of centripetal work in an orbit is a loss, right?
Yes, a yes would have sufficed. You are under the impression that mass attracts mass and that it is a force of mass attracting mass, yes. A yes would have sufficed.
Yes, sir.
Yes. 107 years ago, that was overturned, superseded, replaced, whatever word you want to use, by Einstein. Now, gravity, to quote George Musa, Scientific American editor, gravity is not a force. Maybe another one. Brian Cox. There isn't really a force of gravity at all. Now, in higher education, they teach you that, no, it's not a force. Mass does not attract mass. It's absurd. Now, when we ask for scientific evidence, the starting point would be to observe a natural phenomena. So obviously your interjection was to say, oh, well, mass does attract mass, right? Could you example that naturally occurring? The answer is no. It doesn't occur. Mass does not attract mass. Now, because the foundation of heliocentrism is built on this principle that we must have a force holding us to a spinning water ball, they have not relinquished this and instead continue to perpetuate that lie to school children, right up until higher education, where they tell them that actually no, the uneven distribution of mass causes time, as a dimension invented by a man named Einstein, to bend. So fourth dimensional pseudo space-time bending, that's pseudo-Riemannian space-time invented by Einstein, that's the current gravity and has been for 107 years.
That's, yeah, I'm trying to look up these people's names while you're talking. That's some dynamite. Jeez.
Not really. It's been the case for 107 years. They just lie to children. Ever since it's been the case, they haven't altered the education system. Certain members of this particular fraternity, if you want to call it that, flat earth debate, are approaching people at a governmental level to address that problem. The fact that children are quite literally lied to, only to be told, no, that isn't true when they get to higher education. No, bending space-time is as a result of the uneven distribution of mass according to Einstein. That is gravity now, not a force, explicitly detailed by professors of pseudoscience as not being a force. So that's the end of that for 107 years. It needs to be there. It's a pillar. It's a foundation of heliocentrism. You must have a force holding you to the spinning water ball. That's why it's still taught. You can't just get rid of the force, even though it isn't one anymore. Otherwise, the entire kit and caboodle collapses for the general public, who think that they're only held to a spinning water ball, not flying off it into space, because of the force of gravity, which isn't a force. Absurd, but both run concurrently because one is foundational, that would be Newtonian forces of gravity. The other, conceptual and fourth dimensional, Einsteinian, works with the realms of the current mathematics of space that they just explain with bullshit. So you need both, even though one is a force and one isn't. Anyway.
Well, the gravity that is a force, since it is built on use of a flat plane, and the calculations thereof, a flat plane, that corresponds to reality in that much, and in that much. There's no force being described, right? But because it uses a flat plane, you can get ideas like parallel, perpendicular, up and down from it, and semi-apply it to reality. So it's part of the way we've been tricked. And once you're completely in the paradigm of the Earth flying around the sun and the sun flying around in the galaxy, then you can be introduced to Einsteinian mechanics because you're already there.
May I offer Matthew a contrasting story that will show him exactly what's been going on once you're done?
I don't see why not. Can you mute, please, Matthew? Just causing some...
Sounds like we got time for it.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. So when you look at the horizon, Matthew, I need you to work with me back and forth here, so be ready to answer. When you look at the horizon and the clouds seem to be touching the surface of the sea, do you actually think they are, or do you think that's an issue of perspective?
Oh, I would say that's an issue of perspective. Yep.
Right, great. So let's go back a few centuries when everyone knew the Earth was flat and they would not wander off the coast because they needed land in sight because they thought if they went too far, they could fall off over the edge, supposedly, as they tell us. Whether true or not, let's just go with it. All right. So then when ships and navigators would go and they wouldn't fall off because of a thought placed in their head that we're a globe, that's where that whole thing began. It's like, well, if we go that far, we're going to fall off, so let's not go that far. But then when someone did go that far and they didn't fall off, the thought that was planted in their head is that they're on a circle or a globe and they're not going to fall off. And then, of course, gravity had to be invented and everything else. In reality, it's over a plane and everything shrinks the further it goes out and it seems to touch. But since you've answered correctly, the telephone poles do not get shorter in the distance, nor the clouds touch the sea. As you go to it, they get higher in the sky, like Polaris. If you're going towards Polaris, it's going to get higher and higher in the sky. If you're going away from Polaris, it's going to get lower and lower to the horizon. That all takes a flat plane. It's obvious. But because they want to make everyone think they live on a globe, this thought was planted in their head. So the contrast is the thought of gravity, now to your question, was planted into your head. But the way you described it was described on a flat earth with a flat plane, perpendicular. You see how the trick is done?
Yeah, I see what you mean there. So there's 2 points. You got gatekeeping, which has been a trait of kings for as long as they've been there. Like trying to keep something secret for themselves, because if they don't know where the spices come from, I still run the game. And the second point, that we do have an observable, what is it, 9.2 like meters per second squared? I remember that from school, something like that. So we have that velocity, but that's great. I appreciate that part. Can I skip to something else though and say, how do they
Well, before you do,
Okay.
Before I let you go.
Well, before you carry on, can you please?
If you got something to complete this.
Please, can you pop yourself on mute when someone's talking to you, because you've got a horrendous buzzing sound that's making its way through, Matthew. Thanks.
All right, I've got a mute button, and I'm keeping myself mute anytime I'm not talking. Sorry
in Discord. Can you pop yourself in mute on Discord, because it's whatever you're doing is causing a huge buzzing sound to come through for everyone else in Discord when you're not talking. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Tenth.
Yeah, see, now you brought 9.8 meters squared. Okay, see, again, another thing that's we observe empirically, things fall that heavier than the medium it's in, obviously, but things go up too. So there's just no force because things go up, avoiding this force, like clouds and steam and helium balloons. So the whole point is when they put your mind and they own it, thoughts in your mind, and you start thinking within that system, then that's where the trick is done. Whereas when you just say empirically what I experience, what am I experiencing? Water finds its level at rest. It always has, it always will. We use it for leveling, spirit level, all this, to bubble. We use it in the bubble sextant to create horizontal. So if it works in the bubble sextant to create horizontal, what's a body of water at rest going to create? Curved surface? No, horizontal, the same thing. It's you just have to think and say, why are they programming me to take what I experience empirically through life by observation and make it seem like I live on something that contrasts it and can't work with it? And you have to realize it's a big lie. You see where I'm going with this?
You're on mute, by the way, Matthew. Go ahead.
In all fairness, that's a lot.
It does lead to something else. It always leads to another thing after you get past one of these formulas. It always leads to something else.
Right, but your own experience tells you otherwise. And at some point, we as human beings need to use our own logic, our own reason to say, oh, I'm glad you're telling me that, and I'm glad you have all these degrees behind your name, but that's not what I experienced in life, Mr. Professor at college, so and so. Please show me some evidence scientifically how you got to this. And they can't. That's why the question is scientifically. Has it gone through a method to prove the cause and effect? No, it has not.
Okay, you said you wanted to move on to a different subject, Matthew, as you've been so incredibly courteous. Feel free.
Hey, thanks, man. Those are great points. Thanks for just reiterating that stuff, man.
But before you do, 1 second, shout
where
out to
we've
you.
gone next.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you straight away after handing the mic. Can anyone of the formula leading to curvature, can anyone of that formulate? I can't read his. I can't make sense of what you're saying there, Unitox Femu, but thank you for the super chat. Can anyone of that
I can read it.
Formulas leading to curvature? I don't really understand that. I'm sorry. We'll come back to that. Go ahead, Matthew. I'm sorry to cut you off. Thank you for the super chat, Sasha.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, you got to acknowledge those. Those guys are trying. So the thing that I was trying to go from into as a new thing, because we just hit me with this gravity thing. So thereby, how are they? I can get here on Earth. We can get by it, 8 meters per second, whatever. Maybe we can just not think about it. But how are they explaining orbit with the lack of that constant penetrable force?
Good question. I had John piping up. Go ahead, John.
When you talk about orbits, you'll need an apogee and a perigee to describe them. Do you know what those are?
Those are new words to me, but I guess they'd be like the center and the radius of something.
Well, they're the angle to a celestial object, right? And
okay.
if you're going to use an angle to a celestial object, you'll need a plane of reference. Plane of reference. Does that sound like standing on a curve or a plane of reference?
Well, that's definitely a plane, sir. I mean, all the good math had to start from something reliable. So everything's a plane, right?
Right. So the concept of orbits is a calculation derived from flat Earth angle measurements. That's a problem.
Or the ball, that is.
I see your point. Feel free to go on.
Well, that was kind of the conclusion.
All of it, everything that we're dealing with was all designed starting out with the preface of the actual measuring data, whatever they have, and that's all based off flat planes. So the geometry starts with a flat plane. Surveying starts with a flat plane. Everything starts with a flat plane.
Even the curvature calculator uses a flat plane differential to give you the concept of curvature.
To tell you how curved it should be. Curvature calculator tells you how curved the flat plane should be.
Keyword should.
Okay.
Okay, was that it? Are we all spent?
Well, we got to say our famous saying: all roads lead to flat Earth. All roads, whether it's celestial navigation or whatever, it all leads to flat Earth. If it's Andrew Thomas Young saying all his refraction studies were from a plane, that means he never took it from a curved surface or a globe. He's admitting it.
Right. And this gentleman, Matthew, has just taken on a bunch of information and has had several questions put to him. I don't think it would be fair to start rapid firing questions at him. He's got a lot to take on board.
I don't have an issue with that. What is your position
No, I
anyway,
agree.
Matthew? You've been very cordial, which makes me think you're not a fundamentalist religious zealot ball believer, but you never know.
I was just gonna say,
Sorry.
he's been the most polite guy I ever heard from the ball side.
Hey guys, thanks, Brad. I just had to pop off and come back because some kind of browser thing, but I heard everything.
What's
So,
your position?
Thanks. Try to be polite.
What is your position? Just out of interest.
Yes, sir. So, position, I really feel like it's flat. We're coming from a flat situation, but my biggest problem isn't what I'm observing because it's never contradicted what I needed to hear with the way they phrased everything. Really clever guys put this together, so everything would match up whenever you went to check, like we're talking about gravity, right? But I have just seen too many holes in the people that do the space. Anybody that's doing space, they're not shooting straight. It's too much funds. They're not producing anything. There's no accountability, and then of course the fraudulent videos got me started on things. And for many years, that was enough for me to just say, I'm not going to trust them. I don't need what they've got. It's not going to change my perspective, and it's not like I'm going to really use anything that they're offering. But it did always bother me that people would come to, my restaurant and have like a NASA shirt. I'd be like, you know what those guys are doing? Do you believe any of their bullshit? Honestly, do you do that at all? And that's where I came from, the whole direction. So I feel like people that have been receiving pats on the back to get up to the point of Neil deGrasse Tyson, and anybody that's been patted on the back in that situation, especially being a nerd, whenever you finally get something right and there's something that you do well, there's a strong feeling to protect that and to further this research and stand on the shoulders of giants. But as soon as we start poking holes in things, I think it's really hard for people to take a step back. So that's why I came on this thing, because I feel like I'm just missing the nuts and bolts that you guys are mentioning, because I don't have time to go and research what they said about gravity 107 years ago. That is absolutely jacked up. But on my perspective of things, though, they're changing education in Texas by making it 4-day weeks for the kids and all kinds of bullshit. So this is fundamentally stuff that I need to know, and I don't think it's. The worst part about this is I don't know how this is going to carry on to a public discussion, because ethics, we can say the ethics of the college is not true anymore. Dylan Thomas was great, but his philosophy was flawed. We're not teaching ethics and believing ethics that's coming out of there. We're just passing the test and getting people jobs. But when it comes to physics, people really stop thinking and they say, like, oh my God, this guy is contradicting mechanics and like gravity. So obviously he's not trying at all. But what I see, this guy's trying very hard. So that's the position I'm at.
Still didn't get your
Right.
position.
Remember,
What? So you're a glober that just doesn't quite accept that it's flat yet? Is that what you're saying?
I believe my
Do I make sense?
I believe my elders a lot more than I believe myself, and all the pilots and the people that have been places in the world that I talk to, they've told me, like, look, man, when they teach you how to be a pilot, the book says it's flat. If you call up anybody right now that's going to be shooting a mortar, they say it's flat. They don't have time for the rest of it. And if you're going to be sending a missile across, well, how are you going to hit it if your mapping is flat? And so meeting with those people and talking to those guys, just having like, and then the airline stuff, the airline stuff is blowing me away. Just as somebody stopping to think about this. So yeah, I'm definitely on the flat side. I've been on the flat side probably since I was about 27 when I was taking chemistry in college, but that didn't have anything to do with where I was. It was really just I I believed what I believed at the point, and I looked at it and it looked that way. So whenever I looked up at the sky, that's just what I saw, and the ball stuff just didn't make sense. I looked right at this guy and I was like, "This doesn't look like what they're advertising it as." But I don't have any observation to tell me it's completely flat. I just am not believing it. And I know that's not a great argument to say, in this position. You don't want somebody that's just riding on beliefs. And that's the thing. I can't say that I can make up my mind about it. The math that we're getting into right now and the history of the science where people change the stuff is fascinating. But I'm going to have to sit down and do all that. Go ahead.
I just want to point out to you, I never asserted it was flat. Only you did that. And I pointed out why you say it's flat. I've not made a positive claim. I've only taken what you've said and explained to you why
That's
it
totally
must
right.
be that way. Right.
I come into this basically feeling like that's the structure that we're living with. And some of that is biblical belief because they've just, in the Bible, told us they're jacking with you, is all they're really telling us. You can't believe the Pharaoh. You can't believe a lot of things. And these guys right now, it's aliens and space race and all of this stuff that they're trying to throw at us. But
right.
there's
But what
no
I'm saying,
other
though,
culture,
is
you know?
you just stated you don't believe it's flat, but every example you gave was of it being flat. Do you see the contradiction?
Oh, okay, yeah. So my problem is I just don't want to be stuck in a place of nothing but belief. So I'd like to have more facts on it. And right now I'm just in that place.
You don't believe what you know to be true is the problem. You know it's flat. You keep describing it as such. You just don't believe that. That's what your problem is right now. You just need to think on it more.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just making sure that I wasn't putting words in your mouth about our discourse because that's where I came into it. I came into it on a flat plane as an educated gravity rationalist. I'm trying to rationalize gravity in my daily life.
But, right, you're trying to rationalize this concept that was derived from a flat plane. Because remember, we use parallel, level, perpendicular to describe this thing that's not this thing anymore because they say it's not. But you know it's flat. You experience that all the time, but you just don't believe it. You are in what we call cognitive dissonance, and I think you can work through it. You just have to sit down and really think, what do you know?
Okay, that's pretty good to work with. I'll take it.
I'm still a bit confused. I thought you said you've been flat since you were 20. But maybe I just misheard.
Yeah. So I've kept it pretty far outside of frontal lobes, to be honest with you. I went through a lot of physics. I went through a lot of astronomy when I was a kid. It just got to a point in my about 25 or so when I was in college. I was like, you know what? All of these astronomy people seem to be just on something else. They are not using regular physics anymore. Everything is whippy wompy space time. And from my observations, as Tim was saying, I feel like it's flat. And I live there and I talk to pilots and I talk to people that used to work. Let's just, they're there. The guys that were in the air, guys that were on the sea, they say, don't even give time to that. So I didn't give time to it. And I honestly dug down a lot of different rabbit holes about people and behavior. And I let physics go for a while. So this is me just returning to physics probably after about that much time. That's why it seems like I don't have my feet under me because I was
Okay.
just thinking. Go ahead.
So are you stating that you don't think it's flat, or you think it's flat now? I'm confused as well.
I think it's flat. I am pretty much convinced from my experience that's where we are. I just don't. I guess in my personal life, I haven't felt the need to shout that from the rooftops because I just don't see how anybody but the extremely far deluded are suffering from that.
Alrighty then.
Thank you for coming.
well,
This
no,
was
well-
a great dialogue back and forth.
The only thing I wanted to end with was, the fact about the scientific evidence to gravity. Obviously, that was the opener here. The thing I'll leave you with is, do you now appreciate that there is no scientific evidence of gravity?
Oh, I don't think appreciate is the right word for it. I'm a little bit upset about that. So I'm gonna dig around for it, and it's gonna take a whole paradigm shift for me to get around the water holding itself down and see where I go with that. But I'm glad to be where I am instead of where I was this morning.
You know that gravitas is weight, and they stole that name and made it an invisible force and said that mass attracts mass, which no one's ever seen. Isn't it clear that if you go to the root word and find out that it's weight, do things have weight? And does weight in mediums, depending what medium they're in, go up or down based on weight?
Okay, yeah, I guess the language is there, but that's another good point. You always see the word play. My thing with this though is that I don't think I ever really, was a strong believer towards, gravity. I don't think that's the point. It was just like, hey, we've got this issue going on. Let's try to explain it. And the ideal of infinitely permeable field energy that solar systems way over there are still acting on us a little bit. Just it seems so far fetched. I thought most people just said, okay, well, let's focus on engines and what's important, and we'll get to that stuff when it really becomes important. So we use the same gravity equations, in aeronautics, but against mostly fluid pressure. So we're in a pressure system more than just free form, nothing but gravity. So I just didn't even use my brain for it for a long time. And the more I try to get into it, and like when I was researching to get into the Navy, that made sense. But whenever I look at just a lot of other examples of math on just the book level, like the college people textbook level, I was like, you guys are not going to have fun as engineers. So it's become almost two different ways of thinking. And now to just even think that the highest people up there have written down, no thanks, gravity. We need a different formula. Completely wrecks what I'm dealing with. How to. That's a totally different category.
Matthew, if you realize in your research that they've created this whole heliocentric paradigm and it only exists in mathematics, but not in reality, would that make it easier for you?
I think an equation is an attempt for us to get to, through a phenomenon and into a solution, like a prism or something. I'm fine with just, being where I am. But the idea is they keep telling a lot of people about space travel. They keep making a huge deal about it and allocating all these funds. And the people that I meet in the world are really often saying, like, hey, I'm so for space travel, screw this place. And they want to donate as much energy and life as they can to it. And it's all just farce. I feel like the programs have been farce from the in with, and that's just such a huge allocation of people energy that getting in front of that and needing this information to get in front of that to stop those people from wasting so much energy, that's what's really going to make a difference.
Why do you think that's your burden to carry when you've already asserted the Bible? So I'm assuming you know the words of Jesus. This world is not my kingdom. My kingdom is from another place. And he said to the Father, I'm praying that you keep them in the world, but keep them safe from the world's evils. I'm going away when he left. But he told the disciples that they were going to stay in the world and that the world was full of lies and evil. So you're experiencing the same thing, that the world's full of lies, and you have truth because you've already said you believe in the Bible. So it's all going to play out the way it's going to play out. And you know why they're pushing aliens in outer space, because they don't want to give credit to creation to a creator.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Ezekiel 3:18. If you don't warn the wicked person, if you do warn the wicked person, they don't turn from their wickedness and evil ways, they'll die for their sin, but you will have saved yourself. It says many times, if you know better, it's not right to not tell somebody what's better. And I just want to be able to do that to not to just shout it from the rooftops or anything, but so that at least
You're
at the end of
perfect.
it,
You're
after they have all
perfect.
those degrees.
Join my team. We're starting a reformation. You're the perfect guy. Shout it from
Well,
the
that's really nice,
rooftops.
you guys.
And you know what? There's a great philosopher that once said, "You must unlearn what you have learned." His name was Yoda.
What a terrible, terrible way to round out this show. But with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible.
I've seen Felix Baumgartner's jump. We've all seen this stuff. We've seen shots from airplane windows, everything. It's a flat horizon, except when you introduce a wide angle lens, a fisheye lens. And then the live videos of these things, it goes from concave, convex to flat. It's moving right in front of you. Even the earth changes because of the lens. All right. So why did I say all that? Because if any pilot, just takes one black swan pilot says, man, I've never seen the curvature and I'm a pilot. But he said he had talked to many pilots who told him they don't consider that. They just fly because it's, you would think every pilot would swear under oath it's a curve, but they don't. You know why? Because we've been up in airplanes as high as 40,000 feet or more, and we've never seen it, so they can't. They see what we see.
Right, but I've talked to several pilots as well who would also tell you that Earth is a sphere too, letting that
That's my
cognitive
point.
dissonance play out.
That's my point. My point is you're going to have some saying that because they're on the globe side and there's your cog this, but you got other pilots who are responsible for 300, 400 people saying the other. I'm saying they all should have one story. Look, if I ever went on the plane and I saw curvature of the earth, I would not be afraid to tell you. Nathan, you were on many planes. You would go to the back window to have a better view because it was a little larger. And you said, well, maybe I'm not high enough. We all tried this.
Indeed.
Yeah, frankly, I've always thought that I would get old enough and wealthy enough to build my own Zeppelin. I thought that would just be a neat way to do it, and then maybe I could fly a drone from the Zeppelin. But I don't know.
Just get a high altitude balloon and a camera and a box and copy what a bunch of people have already done. They're on YouTube. The weather balloon, they go very, very high. You don't see no curvature.
Hey, can I give this gentleman a warning about this topic? You may know it already, but there is a lot of people out there looking to be the gurus of flat Earth who want to tell you stories and bring you into their paradigm. I would just warn you about that ahead of time so that you don't hit that pitfall like we've seen so many others do.
Yeah, be careful of Adam Meekin too. He might send you somewhere.
Adam's not.
Okay.
That's messed up.
No, that's good advice. There's always these mind fugglers out there.
Yeah, especially in this topic, it seems like it's got a magnet for them. So just be careful of the people giving you answers because there's a lot of them out there making them up. Just as bad as, I guess it's a human condition.
Well, they're clowns juggling minds. They think they got it. They don't have evidence, but they proclaim it as absolute truth. And then it's like everybody just starts to memorize that shit, even though they don't really understand it. And that's how everybody knows about ether now out there.
What John is saying is that once you find out you've been lied to on a massive scale, you intuitively want to find out, what is true about this topic. And there are many people who want to be the guru to tell you, and they'll do it the same way that the first group of people did, without any evidence, without any empirical nature to test experiments. And they'll say, well, it's this. And then when you say, well, do you have any proof for that? Why you say it's this? How do I know you're not mistaken? Trying to fill that void that lie, created. And so, yeah, just walk and tread carefully and make sure you double, triple, quadruple check everything.
Never
we
bad
call
advice,
it the feast we call it the Feast of Nonsense, and I don't specifically want to mention anyone by name. But there's a lot of people out there.
Stay away from Wixit. Stay away from Ball Busters. Stay here. You're in good hands.
Ball Busters? How dare you, Neil?
Did I say Ball Busters? Oh my goodness! Globe
now it's your turn,
Globe
Neil.
Busters.
Traitor.
Sorry, that was a slip. Oh my goodness! I do that all the time now.
We have an emotionally unstable flat member going off right now.
Oh boy, I can't believe I do that all the time. This is terrible. Stay plugged into Ball Busters. Stay away from Globe Busters. Listen, you're on your own journey. Just stay right here for real truth, because this is where it's coming from. We don't play no games here. If you can't validate it, we kick it to the curb.
You're on your own journey, so you go where we tell you.
That did sound kind of culty, didn't it?
No. I'm just giving advice. That's all. Well, you're not going to tell me the truth is pumping out of here, Chocolate? Come on, man. You've been here longer.
Okay.
That's just the way you said it.
Can you stop blowing smoke up each other's ass for a second? Right. We're going to cover the end of this video that we started in the pre-show, which was Flat Earth Debate 197. So it's way back when. Anyway, I'm going to play it out for a couple of minutes while I press a few buttons and things. So keep your interjections to the end. You're going to get at least a couple of minutes just so we've got the full context.
Drop. Mobile phones will drop a connection too. So I don't know.
No, he got sniped.
Yeah, that guy would. Okay.
No,
Hey,
I just
you were
heard him
asking,
though.
if I up and down. Did you get to hear my explanation, or was it cut off?
Jamie Dreary sniped.
Yeah, he's a known troll.
Wow, this is old.
Okay, so up and down. Arwen, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're
Can you hear
not
me?
showing. Okay, but
Showing up. Okay, whatever. Go ahead, Arwen. I'm sorry.
No, I was just wondering where exactly I was
let's
cut
get
off.
the concept of up and downs firm here.
All right. Well, up and down in my current view is the division by which the heavy and the light are divided. In partial thanks to the constant of gravity.
So
are you
that's
really
not
gonna play this?
correct. And it doesn't make any sense. The division by which something is divided is just nonsense.
I understood it.
Yes, I'm sure you did.
Well, sorry
it
if
doesn't
my
make any
language
sense
barrier
to
got in the
say
way.
that up and down is the division by which something is divided. That's incoherent. Up and down are simply directions.
English isn't its primary language, Brenda. You have to compensate for that a little bit.
I think even the English can understand this.
Yeah, I did understand it.
Yeah. No, you didn't.
Yeah, I understood what he was
You
saying.
pretend you
what
do.
I meant.
But
Don't be so nitpicky.
when somebody says that up and down is the division between how things are divided, that literally is without any meaning. So you saying you understand it doesn't make any sense either. So
Okay.
up and down are simply directions, right? Down is
I
towards
thought we
gravity,
were
a
talking
source
in
of gravity,
relation to physics and buoyancy.
and up is against the pull of
The
gravity.
problem with that statement, Brenda, is you can't prove gravity in the first place. So down is
Yeah, I can.
No, you can't.
Since gravity is simply the phenomena that we observe.
Really?
That yes, we can observe it.
Well,
right?
it's mostly
It's an
the
observed
buoyancy
phenomenon.
effect
We
that
might
we
not-
actually get to
right?
perceive.
What evidence have you got for this observed phenomena? Because I've never seen the phenomena known as
You've
gravity.
never seen gravity. Well, things fall.
Yeah,
that's gravity.
Yeah, but gravity is described as a general attraction between all masses, not just things falling, right? So we have to make a distinction between things falling, which we can observe, and this more generalized attraction between masses, which is not proven, right?
I understand, but that's advanced physics for you. We're just trying to get you clear on the idea of up and down.
No, I think that Riley understands understands that, and that's what he's trying to say here: is that you can't that gravity is not a well evidenced assumption, and we're going to talk about it in terms of physics.
Assumptions never have any evidence. Assumption is an assumption. Observations are different.
No, assumptions.
Up and down
Riley
directions.
opened the hangout by
nitpicky.
saying that he didn't understand up and down, and I'm trying to explain that.
Don't patronize us, okay? It's ridiculous.
Well, he opened the hangout by saying he didn't understand up and down.
No,
and I'm trying to explain it. That's exactly what you said.
No, that's not.
I think he was saying he doubted whether up and down is a true phenomenon.
So there's no such thing as up and down in density over buoyancy, because down indicates that there's a gravity that you're pointing towards or being pulled towards. There is no up or down.
That's only assuming that gravity is a tangible force. In that sense, to assume that gravity pulls you down or pushes you down, that is more the assumption that should be drawn into.
There's no assumptions here.
But
it's just a label,
just directions.
Right?
Correct. It's a label.
It's just up and down are simply the name that we give towards the force of gravity, and up is away from the source of gravity.
No, that's
just a label. It's just a direction.
No, that's a nonsense.
No, that's
statement.
an assumption.
No such thing as gravity.
No, it's not.
Prove it.
Yes, it is. You don't know how that works with gravity. You just know
we don't have to.
That
No, and up and down existed long before the theory of gravitation. So
exactly my point.
Yeah, but your definition.
Up and down.
So then the definition of down can't depend on gravity if it pre-exists gravity.
Well, gravity is simply the force that we observe that pulls objects towards the ground. Right?
No, it isn't.
It is
not.
An assumption.
It's a theoretical idea that needs testing and needs to be falsified or that requires some more evidence to be accepted.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
It could be also the lack of a force applied to an object too.
Yeah. Or it could be that we're accelerating in a direction that we're not aware of.
Well, that's too advanced for you. But for right now,
no, it's not.
For right now,
what I'm suggesting is too advanced for me.
Yes,
I don't think you can approach this conversation
yes, it is
this way.
because
it's not, Brenda.
what we need to do establish first.
Kindergarten
What we need to establish
Don't
first is
be ridiculous.
We have.
You rumpusing the recording, then, Neil.
I think it's only fair that Arwen get to respond to it since he's the one kind of getting hammered by Brenda and then.
Does he have to respond to past Arwen?
Yeah, I'm getting a bit triggered by my former self. Yeah.
Well, don't be. You got a lot of commendation in the pre-show before you got here, Arwen, and I was literally saying how privileged I felt to take part in some of those discussions with you and Anthony Riley involved. So, no, don't feel that way. It obviously is going to be a journey of discovery. And yeah, you can look back on past Arwen and go, oh, you were more ignorant. Yeah, Arwen from 30 seconds ago was more ignorant. So what?
Yeah, but not by that much. That's the difference.
Yeah, but that's the beautiful thing, right? Because Arwen, you could tell, has grown. And if you were to listen to Brenda, she would sound exactly the same.
Exactly. There you go. That's the summary that Arwen needs. Exactly. If you were to listen, hold on, Arwen. If you were to listen to Brenda today, exactly as Chocolate said, she wouldn't be any different. There'd be no different in her argument style. Nothing would have changed. You have. Now, the fact that you can look back and go, I was more ignorant then, just spin it positively. I am wiser now. That's the way to look at this.
Oh, I am, absolutely. No, but while I'm listening, taking in mind that there are certain things that I haven't developed yet, haven't spotted yet, I do think that I am arguing whatever I'm arguing pretty reliable. It's like I'm not like completely blundering or anything. I think I'm doing pretty great for the information that I had available to me at the time.
Yeah, I agree. And we wouldn't have the information we had now if you and Anthony hadn't been thrashing this out and arguing about it. There's a good chance that we'd all be accepting incoherent dielectric acceleration and QE would be shouting at us, right? You know what I mean?
God forbid.
I'm getting ready to.
Well, you can't shout at Arwen from the past. That's unreasonable.
I thought that was going to be the fun of it.
I mean,
and I still have the same arguments that I had back then. I sound exactly the same. So
you would sound exactly the same, but where can you go if you've got everything?
We have
to agree with your unproven theories in order to establish anything in this conversation to define about what up and down is. Is that what you're saying? We have to agree with you.
You need to understand something that where there's two different things we're talking about. One would be the theory of gravity, and the other would be the observation of the phenomenon, the facts that we observe.
No.
Right?
No.
So we observe, yes.
No, because gravity is confusingly like what we're seeing, and basically gravity was created to join together like have the observations of celestial bodies and this up and down thing that we seem to subjectively experience on Earth. So it's not just the up and like gravity is not just things falling. It's not. It's the general attraction between masses, and it's an important distinction, because if there is not a general attraction between masses, then we don't have gravity. We have something else.
You
don't have gravitational pull. You can still call it gravity.
Much later. That theory came much later. We're at the very, very beginning, and we have to get straight.
So then we're not observing gravity. You keep saying, "Oh, there's the thing that."
I said it was a phenomenon.
It isn't a phenomenon. It's a theory.
Yeah,
we observe a phenomenon.
Come on, little g, big G, gravity. Let's just make a distinction between
the observation of the phenomenon, Brenda, is caused by density. It's not caused by gravity, and you have no evidence to prove that it is caused.
If somebody says gravity, then please don't automatically assume that they mean gravitational pull. Let's just make that distinction here.
Well, we observe the phenomenon that things tend to fall to the ground
Well, that's
right?
Not,
and we call that gravity. People call it gravity.
Hold on. What do you mean we call
people
that?
call it gravity.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Hold on.
No, they didn't. They didn't call it gravity before there was a theory of gravity.
Brenda.
No, they didn't.
Hold on, Nummy. Brenda.
Evidence
So you said. So what you just said was we observe a phenomenon, and then we assert that it's gravity. Well, that's not very scientific, is it? Now
we just give it a name. Yeah, that's
that's not what you do in science, though, is it? You don't just observe a phenomenon.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. The next step would be to formulate a hypothesis. That would be the scientific method. Now, wouldn't it? Right. Do you want to do that?
Observe it first.
First, you observe a phenomenon. So then you formulate a hypothesis. Would you like to do that next?
So like for instance, lightning. We observe the phenomenon.
Not lightning. We're talking about gravity. What the hell are you doing?
And then.
We're talking about gravity, Brenda. So would you like to formulate a hypothesis around gravity, please? Let's not talk about lightning.
I'm showing you how science is done.
I don't need to be shown how science is done. Tell me your hypothesis for gravity.
You don't understand how science is done.
You tell me what your hypothesis is.
So we observe the phenomenon of things falling down. And then we formulate a theory
now we're on to step
of
2.
gravity.
We get that.
The theory says that there is...
No, I don't want to know about the theory. We're doing experiments and we are formulating hypothesis. I don't give a crap about your theory.
That's what a theory is.
No, it's not. I want to hear your hypothesis. Are you dumb?
The hypothesis, then, would be that objects will fall to the ground at the same rate.
What a hypothesis does is establish the if and then relationship, the cause and effect. Therefore, in a hypothesis, you require a dependent and an independent variable. Can you give me those, please, Brenda? Start with the independent.
If I take a steel ball and a rubber ball and I drop them from the Tower of Pisa.
Sorry, so if
hit the ground, they will
steel ball. So are you saying if steel ball is your independent variable? So if steel ball, is that your independent variable?
It's like you learned a word and you don't know how to use it.
I'm asking you if steel ball is your independent variable. Observation. The phenomenon is gravity. Now I'm getting your independent variable, and I've heard the word steel ball. So is the independent variable steel ball, Brenda?
The hypothesis.
Yeah, I know what the hypothesis is. Is that what we're establishing with your independent variable? So what's your independent variable? Is it or is it not steel ball?
There's no independent variable in this.
Yeah, there is. That's what a hypothesis is, you moron. Go and look it up,
that's not what
retard. Don't tell me what a hypothesis is, you absolute buffoon. Don't do that. You're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot.
Brenda, he's right. A hypothesis does contain the two values he's just been speaking of. You've got it wrong.
Right. So, do you have an independent variable for your gravity experiment or not?
A hypothesis is...
I understand what a hypothesis is. It requires an independent and a dependent variable, Brenda. I'm not going to say it again. Give them to me right now.
That implies...
I don't want any implies. Give me your dependent and independent variable.
You don't understand this stuff.
Have you got an independent and an independent variable or not?
Oh, can we pause?
I don't need one.
You do. You complete.
I've not heard a "you don't understand" as genuine as that for a very long time. That was lovely, Brenda.
That's when they still thought it was actually real. You know, now they just it's a standard deflection, but they don't believe it anyway. Back then they really thought that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was a very genuine "you don't understand."
I thought
back then they were still fighting for gravity to be a force back then. They didn't really have the switch up that, oh, it's not a force and we have to fight for it being the curvature of space-time.
Well, but it was interesting how she had everyone except for Nathan, it seems, at the time, saying that there was a theory of gravity. You know, that was... see how she worked that in there? And people were arguing that gravity was a theory. It was.
We
Yeah,
weren't
I heard that.
on semantics just yet back then, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have QE to snarl at us if we said it wrong.
Oh, we definitely did. There's no way I'd be saying that stuff unless QE had intervened by that stage. So yeah, there's definitely QE on the scene at this point, which means QE was on the scene of flat Earth debate right from the start, basically.
I do hear a lot of rumpusing going on.
What number is this?
I was just gonna ask that.
197.
197.
197.
Damn.
Was I there then?
You
No,
can't not have been.
No, you were not.
Let's put it this way. There's no way I'd be asking Brenda for an independent variable if you hadn't have spoken to me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
You communicated, but he was not making appearances for sure at that time.
Also,
yeah,
you can hear
this
me.
was like in between the time when he first showed up and gave us his presentation and we met him and all that, and then the time where he started coming in regularly.
That's why I chose this one.
Well, I had been watching
Yeah.
him on Cathexis, so there's a reasonable chance, regardless of whether or not QE is actually in front of me. I can tell by my determination and dogged attitude towards it. I've been educated in this stuff. I know what I'm talking about at this point. Now, yes, I'm muddling up my demands for a dependent variable and then later asking for an independent variable, but that's because I'm obviously quite green at this point. However, I can just tell by the way I'm steadfast and confident that I've been educated in it. I'm not just getting it from a cathexis run with QE disseminating something about science. I've had one-to-ones at this point. I can just tell.
Yep. I agree.
Any more?
Yeah, I wasn't having none of that back then.
I
Yeah,
remember this.
yeah, we
but
know.
You and Tony going at it for ages on this. It was a really good debate to listen to. It's like you say, all of us are a lot less clued up back then. Even just in the vernacular we're going to use when we're dealing with anti-flat earthers. In fact, they're probably not even anti-flat earthers then, are they? They're just ballers.
Nope.
Rumpus was already being rumpus.
They're anti-flat earthers back then. They weren't ballers.
No, they were, but what I mean is we haven't.
We didn't name him that yet.
Like Mark Collard and all that. Or wait, the other one.
I like Nummy Num with his unproven theory. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
We obviously
good
weren't
stuff.
at that stage in the tutorial yet, so the whole theory coming after experimentation, that hasn't obviously sunk in yet.
Shout out to Nummy Num though.
Nummy Num was a damn retard.
I've got to be honest, I'm surprised
He
at
was
how
all
advanced.
right.
I'm surprised how advanced we are, considering how early this show is. Aren't you?
Yes.
This is a really early show, and we're like, "What's your independent variable?" It's like, man, we had a good footing from the off.
We took leads very early, right? While everybody was still like swimming in the community. Oh, we're winning. We were like, especially you, Nathan, we're just like, no, I'm going to like build this foundation now. Well, people don't even understand it yet. You were really attempting to set that standard. And yeah, QE helped you a lot.
It wasn't setting a standard. It was going, I don't know these arguments. And there's like when you've got that kid that can't swim and you just chuck him in the water. you figure it out or die.
But
right?
the foundation was working at that point. Because remember, at that point, this is when they were still saying, "Oh, science proves things, you stupid flurf." Right? Science proves the globe. Science proves this and that and the third. I think this was that transition period when they started saying, "Well, maybe we can't say that anymore."
Maybe that was what spurred QE on to come on the show and do exactly what he did with me.
I've just looked it up, Nathan. I'm just checking out the info box, and there you have linked the old QED that you used to do with Quantum Eraser on in the info box. So it is literally after you guys have met, and then you have been schooled, and you've even put the interview as extra info to refer to people in your info box.
Gotcha.
Right, you were really into it.
Well, just to qualify what that video actually is. So I now disclaim it because I've got no shame, which is to say that Q will back me up. every time he explained something, I'd go, I don't understand. And then he'd have to explain it about 10 more times to me. And slowly it would sink in. By the time most of it had sunk in, I did a show where QE went through all of the stuff again, Flat Earth QED, and it seemed like I'm responding intelligently to the things that have just come to me now, as QE's just educated me on that show then. No, obviously not. But, you know, that was the purpose of that show, to sort of show that process in a very condensed format. But yeah, you're right. If that QED's under that video, it means that, yeah, I was right. I'm obviously not going to be asking for independent variables just off the back of watching a few Cathexis videos.
Yeah, like I said, this was that period right after that show, but before QE started coming on every day with the Skype call in the back, because this was still like Google Hangouts or some shit, right?
Right, people getting sniped out of it. I'm surprised to see that I didn't know that was an overlap. The point where I was still using Hangouts on air and having to deal with people and stop the porn bombing. You saw that I presented the thumbnails for all the guests at one point, but then hid them again. So that's like a whole series of overlays that I still use now. I've still got them all queued up in case something happens with you guys. And there's something I need to hide the thumbnails because somebody puts a giant cock on, which used to happen. People come on and put a giant pornographic cock on. You'd be like, okay, got to delete this stream now. But obviously, in the meantime, you've got to censor it from view while it's live, shut down the live stream, go in, edit, make it private, edit out that one split second of somebody putting something pornographic up. Yeah, so all of those little things that were in place were still happening while we were disseminating the truth that is the scientific method. Amazing, really.
This reminds me of why I like this show so much. So early, it was great. That's why when I found it, I stood here. What a great freaking show this is.
Sure, but it means that what to me seemed like the first 500 shows with Roofy and Rumpus, with us getting schooled by them, wasn't 500 shows. It was probably 60 shows. And then by the time we're up to show 100, we're fully into ripping apart the curve calculator for what it was and figuring it out for ourselves and arguing amongst ourselves about what gravity is by the time we're at the show 200. But in between, I didn't know it was that early. QE's come on the scene and educated us all on their claims, the ballers' claims / anti-flat earther now named claims of having science for whatever bullshit they presented. Now, because they're so into that, the timing on QE's part is exceptional, because while they're full on, right in the thick of it, the whole body of science proves it. You know, you're all science deniers. I can't think of a third example, but something science. That was what they were saying, right? So for QE to come along and then say, okay, let's have your science, they want to be held to that standard at that stage. Hence, Brenda's not, why isn't she bracing against it? She wouldn't even dare come in now because she would know that would just rip her argument to pieces. But back then, in her mind, she's got science for all this stuff. And she knows what science is. So we're going to find out how much science she's got for the globe. Well, she didn't know how obliterated she was going to get.
You heard her say it, right? She was like, when you were asking her for independent variables, she's like, oh, it sounds like you just learned a word and you don't know how to use it. Like, no, it sounds like you don't have a response to what the independent variable is. That's what it sounds like.
She's half right. I'm obviously very green to it, but doesn't mean I'm not going to stand by what I understand to be true at that stage. And I did. And because she's claiming science, as they all did back then, they want to be held to that standard. So, you know, they're going to buy into it if they know that you're asking something legitimate and scientific. And she hears a few science words and goes, oh yeah, I can go with this standard. You know, she's not bracing against it or telling us that, why would I give you a scientific standard for this? It's pseudo force space. You know, just skirt it as they may do now if they were slightly smarter. But as whoever it was said earlier, if you listen to Brenda now, not that I do, I'm in no doubt, I'm guessing, she'd be exactly the same. There'd be no different. There'd be no progression.
Might even be worse, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. I don't think at this point in time she was claiming a shoe as a phenomenon, was she?
Nah, this was before that.
Thank you.
Yeah, whenever there's decent arguments, they just run away from them and start finding new people to fight the old arguments with them. It's kind of pathetic, really.
He was claiming gravity's a phenomenon.
You want to listen to a bit more?
Yeah, she got away with that. She wouldn't get away with that now.
How much beration from me I can take this. Just have a listen.
Yeah, that's what a hypothesis is. You absolute retard.
Why do I need an independent variable, Nathan?
Because that's what a hypothesis is. The independent variable, retard, is the cause in your cause and effect relationship.
My hypothesis.
The independent variable is the cause. Do you get it, you idiot?
My hypothesis is.
Yeah, your hypothesis is the cause and effect relationship, the if and then relationship, the independent and the dependent variable. You complete idiot.
Fine, then if.
Not fine. Give them to me. What is your malfunction, you stupid retard?
Gravity is the independent variable.
Gravity is the observed phenomenon, you stupid idiot. Yeah? No. What aren't you getting? What part of spastic are you? The independent variable is not gravity. That's the observed phenomenon, you idiot.
You don't understand this.
I don't understand, you blithering idiot. I understand that you've told me that the observed phenomenon is gravity. Now we're on to step 2, the hypothesis. Yeah, I want your independent and dependent.
You got to pause there, yeah. There's no way you'd let that go now. There's no way you'd accept gravity being the observed phenomena, would you? I let go of a helium balloon. That's what we respond with now. We wouldn't allow them to move forwards at gravity being. Do you agree?
No, I agree.
What I'm hearing.
Let me just affirm what Adam just said. There's a few times when normally John will find his refracted curvature will find his way to a particularly sweet shortcut. But those shortcuts are kind of shortcuts that only work if you have got a good grasp of how the argument would go if you were to have it. Like with Anthony begging the question of the globe all the time when he's like, well, we've got to beg the question to argue with them. And I'd be like, no, you don't. You can just cut them off at the knees. But in reality, if you just give someone the cut them off at the knees argument, there's a good chance that they'll get into the wrangle-dangle of the argument because they'll ignore it, and then they won't know where to go or how to bring it back to the point in this regard with gravity. Well, no, helium balloons going up, gases are going in all directions, there is no downward bias, there's no gravity to show as a phenomena, which is your point, Adam. Whereas in this discussion, I'm like, you've said that we're observing a phenomena, and that's gravity. Now I'm asking you for your independent variable, i.e. the cause, and you're saying gravity. Well, no, I'm then reaffirming back to Brenda, your observed phenomena is gravity. Adam's objection, there's no way you'd be saying now that you've got an observed phenomena at all, let alone formulating it into the hypothesis on her behalf when she's got it the wrong way round. It doesn't exist. How are you going to put it into a... So yeah, this is us being green, me being green, but us when it's negative.
Yeah, if Brenda was smarter, if Brenda was smarter at the time, she would have said, we don't know the cause, but thank you for telling me you observed this phenomenon. That would have been...
Exactly. If she wasn't as... In defense, if she wasn't green also, she'd have snatched that with both hands, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is new to her, too. You can tell. It's you have a better understanding, for sure.
That's the only decent thing about being where we are. I mean, we came about being at the tip of the spear. It's like, well, yeah, but that spear had to be sharpened. Now, we were at the tip of that spear then, but it weren't very sharp. You know what I mean? But the advantage to that is, even though you're getting it wrong, your opponent's much further down the blade. So they don't know you're getting it wrong, and they don't know when they've got a perceived win to take. In other words, what refracted curvature just said for my audience's benefit, when I say, well, no, you've claimed the phenomena, something occurring in nature, is gravity, she should say, well, yeah, it is. That's basically the end of this discussion. We do observe gravity. Thank you for having me. That would have been the best response she could have possibly given. It'd have shut me right up. But she doesn't know to do that at this stage because she doesn't know what she's fighting against. I am actually slightly more further ahead of the game in this respect, in this subject, even though now, looking back on it, it's like, wow, you're making so many mistakes. But it didn't matter, right?
Well, that's what I was going to comment on. It's observe and declare is all they do. They don't go through a hypothesis or formulate one. And so it's just like the Neil deGrasse Tysons and so forth. They just see something in the sky. They say, oh, well, that's because of this. And this is what was doing here. There's no scientific method going through. It's just observe and declare.
Observe what, though?
Exactly.
But that's the point. That's the hang on.
This is go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the point. So she sees something down, and because they already want it to be gravity, because you got to have a spinning globe that doesn't throw people off. Okay, so anything falling down, negating stuff that goes up. No, down go boom boom, bouncy balls. Observe and declare that, and then we obviously saying, what are you observing?
I think this was before we started holding them to their own statements, as in when they say, "Oh, gravity, we observe gravity because I dropped something." This might have been before we started saying, "Wait a minute, you dropped it, so you were the cause, not gravity." Right?
Yeah, this is way before that. When we get to that stage, we've got declarations from Brenda of tables representing fourth dimensional space-time and things of that nature. Remember?
Well, it was the speed at which you measure the table is space-time.
You've got it. That's it.
What did Nathan say? It depends on how swift I am with a measuring tape.
That was great. Spacing time. That's different from space time.
Variable, and you're telling me that the observed phenomenon and the independent variable are the same thing. You're an idiot.
A hypothesis is a proposed.
Stop telling me what a hypothesis is. You're an idiot. You don't know what a hypothesis is, so don't patronize me with your idiocy. You're an idiot. What the hell are you even doing here?
I know you're very frightened. This is very frightening.
I'm not frightened. I am absolutely pissed off with idiots and morons like you who come on and tell me they've got proof, then tell me things like we observe a phenomenon and then call it gravity. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's not what you do in science, you absolute idiot. That's why I'm getting annoyed with you, because you're an idiot and you don't understand what science is.
It's like with lightning.
Oh, shut up. Shut your stupid mouth. I don't want to hear about lightning. I want to hear about gravity. Do you get it?
For instance, with
not
lightning,
for instance, gravity.
That if we put
Brenda,
if we put
you come
a
on
conductor
Nathan's show,
at the top of a building, the lightning
say
will
that you
flow
have proof
down the conductor
when you
and
obviously
into the ground.
Stop babbling, talking over Arwin now.
Just
Brenda, what
don't
Nathan's trying
start
to get at?
compassing around. Don't assume that you have proof
He's very
when
triggered.
you clearly don't.
Very upset.
Gravity.
This is very frightening.
What is your experiment to explain the phenomena of gravity?
Yeah, there it is again.
And it would require an independent and a dependent variable in your scientific method of experiment that could be tested. That's what Nathan's trying to explain, Brenda. Now be
Well,
relevant now.
One way. So the theory is, the hypothesis is that objects will fall to the ground at the same rate.
not
So
an
the independent
hypothesis.
variables would be the different weights of the materials that we drop. And we see
and then,
if they hit the ground at the same time. So
if
you
and
could
then,
you could-
it's an if and then relationship. If what, then what? What's your independent variable?
If we vary, if
Stop
we
talking.
vary the weight,
Stop talking and listen. What is
I understand.
your
This-
independent variable? The cause, please.
If we vary the weight of the objects, they
So
will
if
nevertheless
weight,
still fall
let's get
at
it
the
down,
same
let's get it
speed.
pegged. If weight. So the independent variable is weight, correct?
So if we vary the composition or the weight of the objects, they will still fall at the same speed. That is correct.
If
So
weight,
steel
then
ball-
hold on. so the
no, it's
dependent
not
variable is falling. If weight, then falling.
I don't know what if, wait, then falling means.
Yeah, if and then relationship, cause and effect. I'm trying to establish it, and it makes no sense because you haven't formulated a decent hypothesis. Your hypothesis makes no sense. You understand why I'm doing this with you? You're saying, well, I'm putting it into this if and then relationship, and it doesn't seem to make any bloody sense. Yeah, no shit.
I've explained it to you, Nathan.
You
but
explained
you've been very
nothing
triggered
to
and
me.
Very frightened. So if you just take some deep breaths and relax.
Nathan is not
relax.
pissed
When
off
you
because
are
you're being
established
arrogant and you're not
in
listening.
providing
I'm not
an
being
variable.
arrogant, I'm trying to calm
Yes,
him
you
down.
are. Yes, you are. You
So
were
the
from the very beginning patronizing us,
that Galileo
and then starting to bluster that you have proof on the.
Any more to this, John?
A lot of rumpusing going on. I'm
was gonna
noticing
say-
a lot of rumpusing.
Well, it seems as if she's had an interaction with John as well, because she's knowing enough to speak over you as you're trying to explain something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think she may have run into John somewhere else or been warned about him.
That's QE, not John. And yes, she had run into me. I eviscerated her a number of times before this interaction.
Okay.
Right. So yeah.
Brenda will have run into everyone. So back then, she was prolific. I remember Brenda, it was saying when we had hangouts, and if you didn't hide that information at the top of the box on screen, they used to come in and take over your whole stream and stuff. And Brenda did that to us early on in the day. She just crashed an Iron Realm stream and held it. But she was everywhere. Yeah, early on, Brenda was prolific in all the different channels, because there was tons of channels back then. And she'd be popping up everywhere.
Yep.
Later on, there's a timestamp for Tim Ossman. I don't have it, but he comes on the show as well. But that's later on.
Does he come on with his observations?
Can he come on?
His Great Salt Lake observation?
No, way before that.
Well, I think
really?
No, he didn't go to Salt Lake at that time. No way.
No, but he was arguing for Earth Curve. I'm pretty sure in this one, but I don't have a timestamp for it.
Well, that's too bad.
I'll have a quick scrub. I'll see if I can find it.
Amidst a gloomy media narrative, UK equities have lost favour.
Flat Earth used to be about like passing the peace pipe and crap, and now it's like.
When was
it's
it
just
ever
hatred.
about? It was never about passing the peace pipe. Are you kidding?
Oh yeah, dude! Come on, man.
No, dude. It's
super
gotten
serious,
less bad, not more.
It's got super serious now. We've
That's
started
pretty
asking for proof of the globe. Now it's
Peace pipe
serious.
right now. I don't know if I'm being heard or not.
Yeah, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm smoking. All I want to say to Brenda, when you
What are you smoking?
to weed. But I was going to say to Brenda, if you're when you start telling people to calm down when they're not mad, it only works if you're cute and the guy and the beef. If it's not that, the guy's gonna get pissed off.
Brenda's a dude,
You
bro.
just pissed off a lot of guys by saying calm down. Not the desired effect. I imagine.
Like total mainstream liberal cuck. I mean, he's the opposite of all you guys. You guys are the opposite. You're like the anti-mainstream clowns. He's like the total mainstream cuck. It's absolutely amazing to have you guys in the same room.
Brenda, do you think they landed on the moon?
I don't think
Brenda,
she's here
peace,
anymore.
dude.
I think she's gone.
Yeah.
Oh. What about you, Tim? Do you think they landed on the moon?
Got to look at the scientific method.
I think there's more evidence that they did than they didn't. I hear a lot of disbelief from the flat earthers. There's a lot of. Have you ever? Let me ask you this:
Would you assign a probability to how probable do you think it is that they did?
You got to admire Nummy Num, right? So you just was that question originally for Brenda? It was, and then because Tim's attacking her, he just immediately reposes the question to Tim. I like it.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was.
See,
they faked it.
No, wait. First of all, it was 20 years
said.
before. It was 20 years before I was even born. So really,
Well,
epistemologically
that makes
speaking,
that difference.
yeah, I would have to. It doesn't make any difference.
No. The evidence is also.
I can't experience anything when I'm not born.
You have the same evidence as everybody else of the reality or non-reality of the event.
No, some people actually watched it. Probably.
So they watch
more live.
Yeah, now you can watch it again. You're going to see the same stuff. It doesn't add or subtract any evidence.
So from an epistemology standpoint, you think just cameras and whatever they gave us is the same or equal to actual people in the time that saw it?
I think we're actually at a great advantage over the people at the time who saw it because we can pick over it frame by frame, which
they can't do that.
They didn't.
They can't do that now.
They could not do it at the time.
But they can't do it now.
They can do it now. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so they have that experience of actually being there, and they can pick it over. So we have more advantage. Well done.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, obviously, this wouldn't be a discussion that would happen now. In unison, everyone. Go on, John. QE.
Timmy Clown with his epistemology with cameras. What a knuckle dragger. What a doofus. Did you catch that?
I did, but I'm more focused on the fact that we're having the discussion at all. So gas pressure without a container would be the go-to now. You wouldn't even have us arguing about this. Maybe it goes there eventually, I don't know. But at this point, you're like, why are we arguing about the ability to, fault find in edits? Find continuity errors? Really?
No, being aware at the time in front of their TV?
No one watched.
Adam. I was going to say, I think we're very different back then. We don't know it's flat. Think it's flat. We got proof, but we're still looking at the shit that the ballers are presenting, like the moon stuff, and convincing ourselves. Another one, I would back then have thought about the photographic plates, why they wouldn't work, because I'm still getting in my own head. Yeah, like newbies now, that it is flat and demonstrating to myself. And part of that demonstration early on is taking apart all of their so-called supporting evidence. We can dismiss it at a laugh now because of gas pressure, you know what I mean? But back then, that's evidence that you were not compelled to deal with, but actually interested in debunking and getting moving forwards and saying, well, this is a lie, this is a lie. And it's when you start to see that many lies within their own rhetoric that you become very confident. But it's not until we've got things like gas pressure without a container and we use it properly and the implications and we get to the black swan and we get to the sextant and celestial navigation that all of us are confident to say, I know it's flat.
Yeah, but the gas pressure argument was right from the beginning.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove flat, does it?
No, but in the context of this argument, it would have stopped it. So I don't know why it's not being brought up. It's very interesting.
Because we're not refined. We've had 5 years of these arguments to get them to this level of refinement. So we know where you're going to take the argument and we know how to deal with it succinctly. Not necessarily cut it off at the knees, but we can have fun with it now. We can play with each argument because we've been through this.
I understand what you're saying, but that argument was already out by then. I mean, when was this? 2017?
Yeah,
2018, 5.5 years ago. This is.
It's interesting.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
There's a promo code that says when you were pimping your Flat Earth merchandise, 20% off between 16th of April and the 20th of April. So I think you're around about April time. So it's a good 5.5 years ago. That
April time? What about a year?
In any event, let's major on this minor for the next 25 minutes, I would say.
So 2018.
Something like that.
So, yeah, 2018. You guys should have been well versed in that argument.
Maybe we'll get there in a minute. Understanding
possibly
with their own eyes. So what we have now
what
and what they
are you
had
talking
then
about
is the same.
being there? What do you even mean by that? That's bizarre.
So do you know how many eyewitness accounts of them actually seeing it? Like
haunted? Is that really?
I don't know if it was separation.
Are you Jonathan? Hello.
No, I don't know how many. How many eyewitness accounts?
Hi, Jonathan. Good to have you.
Hey, have you ever seen? Have you ever seen Jem Panda's documentary?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Good,
Yeah.
Nathan. Thank you, Riley. I appreciate that. Yeah, he put together, a good piece of evidence.
No, he put together footage.
But you're on the
that
fence.
Nummy's
You're on the
talking
fence
about.
about the moon landing. Is
They
that,
just
is
put
that what I
together
can take
footage.
from this? Is that
The same
just
footage.
explain how you are, if you're on the fence and you're going, there's more evidence for the moon landing clearly than against the moon landing. Okay,
Yes.
but see, here's the problem with that statement. What you can do with that statement is say, okay, everything the flat earthers are saying about the moon landing, we're going to put that in one basket and call it minuscule. And everything
There's moon
NASA
hoaxers. There's moon hoaxers too.
Okay, well, they're pretty much in the flat earth
like Bart
community.
Sabrell and all those clowns that make
No, I was
total
a moon
propaganda
hoaxer
pieces.
I was a moon hoaxer for years.
Are you saying that there's people out there nowadays that are moon hoaxers that are not flat earthers?
Absolutely, more. Yeah,
there's
more.
Yeah, there's more moon hoaxers.
Wow, I'd love to meet them, but okay.
Hey, dude, I hate to break it to you, but there are only a few thousand flat earthers that watch this stuff. Okay, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that is the.
Did you want to add something, Roto? Or are you just hot micing?
I'll add something.
I'm hot micing. Oh, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. Just that plumb bobs and water.
Well, thank you for that.
What the hell?
Did you not hear him? He said plumb bobs.
Plumb bobs and water prove the Earth is flat.
What the hell are you talking about?
Plumb bobs and water.
Well, plumb bobs
What
and
the
water.
hell are you talking about in the context of what's going on right now?
Hold on, I don't think Quantum Eraser heard you, Roto. Let me just say it again. I think it needs repeating for a fifth time. Plumb bobs and water.
No
Okay,
swearing.
And or in.
And bloody hell, Adam, just butt out. Do we get it, QE? Let's get an affirmation.
QE is trying to say he's talking about moon deniers.
That's not what he said. He said plumb bobs and water.
I know. But again, when Tim Ossman said only a few thousand or what are listening, is that why we're shoved into a corner and the algorithms are all against us and Congress came out and said stuff? Is that because only a few thousand are looking at this?
I don't know. We're way off track here. Go on, Roto. Try it together contextually.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say on the road to truth, there's a lot of sideshows.
Get the video back up
in the woods.
That's profound. Let's get back to the video.
Did you want to add something, One Deck?
No, just let's get back to the video. I was really enjoying it.
It's a flat earth.
And how was I off track on commenting on exactly what Tim Ossman said? There's only a few flat earthers watching this stuff.
I think
tactics, wasn't it, early on, to come and make you guys feel like you're part of a small, incorrect group. Then it goes on to saying it's not growing, it's dying, flat earth. They're all the cheap ad-homs they'd throw at you, isn't it? Just distraction.
Yep.
Well, I like the allusion to proof without actually showing any proof. That one is very, very effective, apparently, because he's made the claim that there's more proof that they did than they didn't, but he never pointed to any proof.
Right. So unicorns.
Yeah, he's a confident
true?
retard sophist.
So it's equivalent to unicorns. Are they true? Well, I mean, there's definitely considerably more evidence in favour of there being unicorns than there is evidence that there isn't any. Let's be honest about it. Moving on.
The truth. Some people like to say there's millions and it's growing and
no.
We're just way ahead. We're
Can
way
I
down
say,
the back.
hang on. Richie from Boston is a huge flat earther, and he's got a following of over 100,000 people.
So what is that supposed to mean? Every single person that's a subscriber to him is a flat earther? I mean, where's your logic,
I highly
dude?
doubt that. No, I highly doubt that. What I'm saying is that he's a huge flat earther. But regardless of that, what I wanted to
Yeah, he's a complete
total conspirator.
Maybe,
it seems like that's the growing trend right now. The people who believe in sun simulators and all this other crap.
Unfairly
people got to get a hold of their own judgment.
Judging the moon landing. That's all I'm saying, because there's things that you cannot dispute, and you're going to put those in the minuscule pile. And then there's things that NASA wants to bestow its honor on, and those you're going to put in the humongous pile. So
if there's one single piece of evidence going against the moon landing, to me, it would call into question it heavily. But there isn't anything. Things like a funny thing happened to them.
It did it again.
Yeah,
we had the gas pressure argument back then. If QE was around, I'm sure there was gas pressure without containment.
This is before QE took a direct interest in the show. I'm pretty sure he may have had some private interactions with Nathan, but I don't think he had actually come on and argued personally.
That's correct. Strictly speaking, it is Quantum Eraser's fault.
Wait,
hold on.
Where the hell were you, QE?
Can you let me move on with the video after I make an outrageous claim? Thank you.
Whatever your name is that was not talking before the religious guy. What I listened to you yesterday, pretty much everything that you were saying was just false. Okay. It's one thing to have a new narrative to the mainstream narrative, but like when you pretend like you know the mainstream narrative and you're just completely wrong, you're wrong on the offset, bro. Completely wrong.
What are you talking about specifically?
Oh my God. I'll have to troll through all that crap you were.
Well, yeah, because you're just talking shit.
Tim,
you're not going to come up
no
with
cussing.
You're actually talking
number
about
one.
You
Religious
just scroll
guy
through it again, and then you obviously don't remember what you're actually.
Your dogma is silly. Silly.
My dogma.
Can I say something?
I'll listen.
So you heard how you just told whoever he was talking to, or you're pretending that you know the mainstream narrative. Okay, 6 years later, nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve. Who claims the horizon's Earth curve?
Not only that, that guy
Way to go,
made
Tim.
a claim. Yep. He made a claim, and he asked him to back it up. And he was like, "Oh, you want me to go through everything? Yeah, Witsit."
Yep. You hear his bro. Hey, bro. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, he was always one of those dudes. Yeah, bro.
Speaking of
I think the bro is the trigger to that he's getting ready to screw you over with some bullshit, like when he invokes bro.
Speaking of people who use the terminology bro a lot, Nathan Thompson dropped me a line in appreciation of my debate with Jaron, and this morning, and I just ended up in a little back and forth, not phone call, but text exchange, and I was like, well, what's your interest in this? I don't really follow. And then he explained to me that Witsit had accused him of thieving from him. Total bullshit, according to Nathan Thompson. And then he gave his explanation of some phone that Witsit had given him and then lost his own phone and demanded it back when he'd been using it and they were out on the road already, or something to that effect. But that turned into Nathan Thompson being a thief, according to Witsit. From what he was telling me, I mean, like I say, I've only got
Stole weed.
No, I think they had a Brokeback Mountain encounter.
Okay.
No.
Well,
There was
that
a
bit
number of
also got
people
mentioned.
that
Before you
witnessed
give me
him
that detail, just so I
stealing
can tell you what Nathan Thompson said to me. He then said after that accusation was made, he then went on to go to California or somewhere different alone and get arrested with a load of weed on him or something like that. Whitsitt, that is.
Yes, I remember. That's exactly what happened. Because I remember they were taking donations to try and get him out of, I guess, the holding pen he was in.
Sure, but from what I gleaned from Nathan Thompson's interaction with me, which he proactively contacted me, was to say, nudge, nudge, yeah, I got shunned out of that little group as well. Just thought I'd let you know. I think that was what he was trying to say to me without saying it.
For clarity, who was in jail for weed? For clarity,
Whitsitt.
It's not
Whitsitt when they went on that trip to California or wherever they were going, all over. Him and Nathan Thompson.
Okay, all right. I just need that clarity. That's all. So here's what I'm going to say. So the smartest man in the world with the highest IQ loans his phone to a guy and ends up in jail.
We don't know that. We don't know any of this story.
No, Whitsitt's got an IQ. He's smarter than all of us, and Sharon even says that. He ends up in jail with weed in California. You would think that someone with a high IQ wouldn't be going to California with weed and get caught.
We don't know that.
But
I don't know that's the case.
Hold on.
I don't. Hold on. Does anybody know this is the case?
That is the
this
case.
Is scandalous.
Wait a second.
Stop.
That is the case.
Hello. I am more
You
than happy
just
to
told me that
disseminate
was the
Nathan
case.
Thompson's side that he's passed on to me, right? That's fine. But as for this speculation about him being locked up in California or whatever, does anybody actually know that's the case?
Yes, Nathan, I just said. He was on 24/7. They were taking donations for him. He was in prison. I used to like the kid back then.
Well, that's travesty.
But hold on, that kind of
Go on, John.
that's kind of irrelevant to what Nathan was trying to talk about, though, because it seems as if there is an excommunication happening of other people by the new flat Earth Pope.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you, Refracty Curvature, for picking up what I was trying to put down. Right. Now, number one, okay, you could major on he's done something that is classed as criminal. You could also get into the debate of how criminal you class it to be versus how criminal it is in states currently and various other discussions that are political in nature, and I couldn't give a toss about. Yeah, okay. You want that point against Whitsitt? Okay, he's a criminal. What did he do? He smoked a bit of weed.
That man was saying he's supposed to be the smartest person, but yet he gets caught in California with weed? Are you kidding me?
Thank you.
That's not the point Nathan Thompson's making. Listen to what Nathan.
I know that was my point.
Yes, you made it. Now let Adam reiterate it.
I was there and involved in it.
Just let Adam reiterate it. Go ahead.
So what he's talking about is that one of the American Flat Earth conferences after it, I don't think he was like much in the in crowd of which I was part of then. Then shortly after the conference, there was just a blackening of a person's name and accusations of him being seen stealing a small bag of weed and stuff from somebody at the conference. That was the beginning of the accusation. I think what Nathan's alluding to, Nathan, is it's very similar how they'll all turn on you at a point where it's now been decided you've been excommunicated. He's lightening what happened to him, I think, back then.
Right. We all got that. My point was on the whole different matter that it seems like only Neil got, which is we are being barraged by how smart this guy is. And I'm hearing a story. If true, then he's not that smart. That's all.
Yeah, that's not really a point, is it?
Not really.
It wasn't meant to be a point.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but intelligent people get arrested all the time. That's non sequitur at best.
Indeed.
That's what I'm saying.
I got arrested in Rome.
Yeah, but you are a criminal.
What I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So when you get out there, when you get out there and your ego and your pride makes you say, I'm the most intelligent in this group. Okay, I guess I can't finish what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, nobody
interrupted. Hey, Adam, that's what I became.
Well, what you're saying
got
is,
arrested.
What you're saying is Adam's not very bright.
No. Adam never made a claim that his IQ was Spock mind powers over everybody.
think what 10th's driving at is, if
Even
he's
though
that
it is
intelligent,
full
why
animal.
didn't he Jedi mind trick the police officer? Is what he's driving at, right?
This is not the weed you're looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Adam. These are the weed you're looking for. Good one.
And in defense of Adam, he is like Spock level genius. We're just going to have to accept that.
Who is? Shit's at 60.
Adam.
Adam.
And when you got arrested in Rome, Adam, I became an Adam Meekin fan. That was great.
But let me get it straight. Adam Meekin gets arrested, suddenly he's a hero and a vigilante. Witsit gets arrested and he's just dumb.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh, Adam never.
You got it.
Whole struggle is happening here.
I see.
If Adam said he was smart, his IQ could take on anybody, and all his compadres say he's smarter than all of us, and he got arrested, we'd be having to dig at Adam too. But he didn't say all those things. Probably comes before a fall, is what I'm trying to say.
Back to the original point, though, for somebody that doesn't claim to be the leader of Flat Earth, he sure is excommunicating a lot of people from it, don't you think?
I don't remember Witsit being a big exponent in that. For a lot
No, he
of
was the
people.
one on the road trip with Nathan Thompson, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm on about the accusation of him being a thief.
Oh, okay. Like I say, I don't know the ins and outs. I got 2 or 3 sentences from Nathan Thompson this morning.
Who cares? Move on with the video.
Back to the video.
Back to No, we're not Witsit Gets It. We're on Tim Osman.
Listen, I respect try to get along with everybody, and you can
Same
believe
thing.
or disbelieve or anything you want to do. That's entirely.
No. What do you mean, same thing?
Same thing. He's about as smart as Timmy.
That's what I said. Same thing.
Yeah, but you're both wrong. These two individuals aren't even comparable on any level.
Your opinion, and I should be entitled to my beliefs and my understandings of things, and we could mutually discuss things and be respectful from one another.
Ah, get out! Belief. Sod off, you're on the wrong platform. I'm sorry. I thought this was live.
Without
You set that up.
This is me respectful.
That's my dog.
Hi, my name is
Okay.
Timothy Ossman. This is me being respectful.
I understand.
It's when anybody pushes it on someone else, that's when it becomes an issue for me.
I mean,
Well, he's not pushing
Yeah.
it. He's just.
And that's
I'm
when a
not
lot of
pushing
conspiracies
anything.
He's
fall
not
apart.
declaring it to be scientifically proven or anything like you guys are constantly doing.
I didn't say he was pushing anything. I'm just saying in
Actually,
general,
scientifically
when he pushes
proven. I
the
think you've
belief.
been told several times that science doesn't prove things, Arwen.
What the hell?
There it started.
There it is.
Can't believe within 20 seconds of telling you both how wrong you are, I have to eat my own bloody words. Bastards. It seems, gentlemen, I was wrong. I take it back.
You couldn't have
I've been told that several times.
Bro.
Hey, Nathan.
Okay, so then, why do you believe that the Earth is a globe?
Hey, Nathan.
I know that the Earth is a globe.
Explanation.
How do you know? How do you know?
Was trying to
Because I have a justified belief
Tim, are you
in
claiming
that it is a globe.
water doesn't
That's not the same
Can
as
I
water.
ask him one question? Hold on, you've asked him a direct question.
One question about
Hold
the moon
on,
We're
landing.
getting into
this point is-
philosophy now.
I just want to hear
No,
his
one
answer.
question.
But you brought it there. You took it there.
Hang on. One question about the moon landing. Here's the problem. If a man on the moon weighs about 100 pounds, let's say, with all his gear, let's not get into the math. Let's just say about 100 pounds. And he was
If a man weighs 100 pounds on the moon, now let's not get into the math.
What a
was able to displace whatever you want to call it, sand, dust on the moon, and create his own footprint, which apparently on this earth, dry sand does not create one. But let's go with the fact that the moon dust is different than the sand on the earth. Let's go.
This is Feast and Nonsense 101, though, isn't it? Argue about how the footprints can be created on the moon's surface after they've travelled through the sky vacuum and descended onto it. How do they get the footprints?
Who is that? Is that Mark Smilair?
I wouldn't say this is feast and nonsense though. This is more like just rudimentary arguments before getting to the real crux of the thing. You know what I'm saying?
No, definitely not. No, this is
these are the
definitely
arguments
feast of
that
nonsense.
normies have when they first get into this shit.
Yeah, that's
Right?
feast of nonsense. The whole point of the feast of nonsense. Don't let you focus on the thing that destroys the argument immediately with one breath. Can't have gas pressure without a container. That's it. All of this argument's done. That's it. Let's pack it up. In all seriousness, no sarcasm. Let's go home. We're done. That's it.
And this is post Black Swan too.
This is pre-Black Swan, far pre-Black Swan.
No, because didn't he just say didn't Chocolate just say that we never claimed that the horizon was the edge of the whatever.
He was quoting.
Or was that the lie?
He was. It's because we were all talking on the same show. It's a bit confusing responding to our own show. That was Chocolate saying it now, current Chocolate, about what had been said by Tim Ossman post Black Swan, but about 2 years ago.
Yeah. When y'all start speaking live, saying this is live, because
I'll clear it up. So Tim Osmond was telling somebody on that panel that he didn't understand them. He said that, it's nice if you come up with a new narrative, but pretending that you understand the old mainstream narrative is funny. So I cut in and said, well, listen to him saying that now. 5 years later, he's on here telling us, well, who claims the horizon's Earth curve? Nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve. That was the point.
Yeah. Know
While
your own
he
narrative.
showed pictures of it.
Chocolate's response was to Tim saying you should know your own current narrative. Well, yeah, so should you, was Chocolate's
basically,
interjection.
yes.
Content.
No, I said while he had several pictures of the horizon saying that it's Earth curve.
That's the best part.
I mean, that was incredible.
You couldn't buy that type of irony. Who claims the horizon is Earth curve? While I show you these pictures of a horizon that I'm claiming is Earth curve?
That's very similar to...
The title of that picture, the title of that picture with multiple horizons, on the top of it, it said, "This is Earth curve." That was the title.
It seems like that group does this a lot. Remember Bob with the celestial video he made, and he had his HOR, his whore, and he had a 90 degree, and he had and he wouldn't address it, even though he drew it on his own whiteboard.
It's fun watching them get tangled up. Are we all up to date? The book, Finn.
Yep.
Go with that. But let's go with the fact that the moon rover drove around the moon and kicked up whatever the
Get
hell
on with it.
is.
Yeah, get on with it.
Then how come a 10,000-pound rocket engine didn't even move a pebble?
Did a 10,000-pound rocket engine land on the moon?
He's
Is that what you're saying?
Tail.
Yeah,
I'm saying a 10,000-pound rocket engine that was attached to the freaking Eagle.
So that rocket engine landed on the moon. Is that what you're telling me right now?
He's referring to the rooster.
See, this is called argument from incredulity, right? An argument from ignorance.
No, he's saying
You
why
have
didn't it kick
absolutely
up dust?
no clue what you're talking about.
He's not saying that. He's saying why didn't it kick up dust?
Rocket engine. I'm saying that
he's saying where's the blast? Where's the blast print? Is what he's asking. Where's the blast?
Well, first of all, it came down, right?
How can you deny this?
It is an argument. I think that is an argument from incredulity within a begging the question fallacy.
How can you say this isn't a feast of nonsense?
Right.
You're right, John. I just can't get it out of my
But is he about to defend the claim that he just said? He's just asking the guy that, did that happen? Is that your claim? I don't know. Go ahead.
No, he was trying to dispel something heliocentric from within the paradigm. That's how.
No,
that's how the ballers then win.
No, he's just trying to say Tim Osmond's vibe is you don't understand the original heliocentric claim in the first place. So when you give a weight to a rocket that's landing, is that right? Is that right? He's focused in on one detail to expose that he doesn't really understand the rhetoric. Now, whether or not Tim knows that that's incorrect as a detail doesn't matter. Tim's just decided that he doesn't know the rhetoric. Therefore, he's going to hone in on one detail to say, see, you don't even understand the rhetoric. You don't even know what they're claiming has landed on the moon and what weight it is. That's how he's going to try and overcome this battle. That's his
Well,
tactic.
I think there's a bit of confusion here, because I always heard that it was thrust, 10,000 pounds of thrust, not the weight of the rocket.
Sure. But who cares?
Back to the video.
Yeah, back to the video. But I still can't want to get it out of my system. Chocolate's like, no, this isn't feast of nonsense. The fact that they're arguing, Flat Earther is saying, why didn't it kick up dust after they left the spherical moon with its orbital mechanics and took a journey that utilized slingshot motions and orbital mechanics derived from a flat plane to land on the moon that's also spherical and capable of being landed on with all this equipment that definitely landed there. That's what the Flat Earther is arguing in this discussion, isn't he? You're telling me that's not
Right,
feast of nonsense?
because he's in the begging the question, and he says, fine, I'll go there without knowing he's doing it. Okay, because he doesn't know the arguments like today. But he says, fine, you want to say we went there and he weighs 100 pounds, I don't want to use math, blah, blah, blah. How come this rocket with 10,000 pounds of thrust didn't kick up one pebble? He's saying there's a contradiction even if I go into the begging the question of this thing. That's what he's trying to say.
I understand that, but I'm saying that an hors d'oeuvre at the Feast of Nonsense is an idea that the hors d'oeuvre debunks space or debunks the moon landing in this instance. So what
I'm in full agreement with you. I'm just saying that's what we did back then, and it's evolved to a better argument today.
Yeah, but I'm just taking umbrage with Chocolate because he's saying this isn't Feast of Nonsense. It's just a crappy old argument from way back when. But I would say that the crappy old arguments from way back when are deliberately put into the realm of Flat Earth versus Globe Earth with a particular agenda that we're all begging the question that they can travel through space to the moon, and you're trying to debunk them traveling to space through the moon by picking apart the dust kicked up when they arrived.
No, I understand all that. It's just I don't consider that. I don't really consider that to be the Feast of Nonsense. To me, it's the Feast of Nonsense is more like after the fact, right? It's I don't know. To me, it just seems like a more rudimentary argument. It doesn't seem more
on your
Chocolate's
path.
point was a normie. Chocolate's point, a normie would organically say this and not know it's a Feast of Nonsense after he heard the opposite side.
If you listen to the conversation early on with the guys there, they're making the point that there are more anti-moon landing people than there are flat earthers. And I would preclude this in a way from necessarily. Nathan's right, it doesn't help in the flat earth debate. In fact, it's a distraction, but it's part of that journey. Before you become a flat earther, I would suggest the majority of people look at things like this and the moon landings and raises early questions that would then not necessarily lead to flat earth, but in a lot of cases, this argument, I think, is valid in that arena. It's a stepping stone. It might be classed as superfluous because we've got gas pressure without a container when we get to flat earth debating. But in terms of, they did reference it, just dealing with anti-moon landing people, it's a valid point.
Back to the video.
It came down and approached the moon. And so when it did that, it probably kicked up a lot of the sand that was there, right? Until the... I mean, does that make sense?
The argument is
no, wait.
The tire's spinning. The tire's spinning up the regolith, which is what they call this, the surface of the moon, should have flown out into, I don't know, 20, 30 feet up in the air in like a radial pattern, according to the gravity, because it was a lot lighter.
And taking a lot longer to fall down, too.
Yeah.
But
that's the argument made. It's definitely strange and doesn't make any sense. But then again, none of the footage
The dust
makes
should
any
settle
sense.
at 1/6 1/6 speed that it would on Earth. But the thing is, where's the evidence that any dust got kicked up, Tim? I mean, I think the thing is that I'm just glad if you are willing to say that you believe in the moon landing, then that's perfect because it's just.
I never said that, did I?
No, this is wrong. So the fact that they don't have video, So the fact they don't have video evidence of dust being kicked up in Narnia means that dust wasn't kicked up in Narnia. That's so nonsensical. I don't see how this is helpful in any way.
Yeah, it's that normie argument, John. It's that normie argument, man. You got people looking at what they present as the moon landing, and they're telling you that a rocket just landed there, but they're showing you pictures where everything looks serene, like it just got cleaned up.
The powers to be.
You can't say when that picture was taken in relation to when that dust settled. So it's nonsensical to say that it's proof of anything, especially when you're in the begging the question fallacy of being able to go there.
Right, John, but that's the point of the strategy, is to get everyone in this paradigm of feast and nonsense, because they don't want the better argument, gas pressure without a container, to even be talked about. That's why cutting them off at the knees with that stops all this. But they know it would, so they say, okay, let's talk about this, and everything gets steered here, so you don't even get near that destruction argument of gas pressure.
Yes, and you got idiot flat earthers that go right after that little bait. And they still do it today, by the way.
That's correct.
It's never going to stop, though, right? Because the moon landing is something that was presented as reality. People are always going to pick that apart. I mean, even Tim Ossman himself said there are more moon hoaxers, aka globers, that don't believe they went to the moon than there are flat earthers.
We just had India go to the moon with CGI. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's never going to stop.
If somebody cares whether or not they want to figure it out.
Wow. You're straw manning.
Well, okay. Well, I like
I don't know. How about that answer?
Didn't believe the moon landing conspiracy.
I don't know.
So that's
is it actually perfectly valid answer?
Yeah, it is. But I like that.
Just in case anybody wants to know, check out the work of James Collier. He did a documentary about 45 minutes called "Is the Moon a Paper Moon?" Came out in 96, 97, and died shortly thereafter, like a year later. But he went and checked out all the spacesuits. He went down to the museum, took measurements. His contention was that they couldn't fit out of the LEM, that the LEM opening was too small for them to get out with the
And all that
spacesuits
stuff
on.
they had in the LEM is pretty suspicious. But if anyone wants anything from the Bonneville Salt Flats, hit me up.
So there's no proof
ketalogic17@gmail.com.
I told you.
Are
Let me
you?
know.
I told you,
I'm ahead of
John.
that.
Quarter-mile
Retracting
times.
Are you retracting your statement that there's
got
really
his
no
soul
proof at all?
I didn't even say that.
That it was fake? Yeah, you did. You said there was
You're a freaking idiot. Why don't you
proof
open your
whatsoever.
ears, your little wood elf ears, and listen? Thank you
that's
so
really
much.
nice,
Have a
but
good one.
people can actually scroll back in the Hangout
No,
and
he said
literally
he's not aware of one.
Hey, Nathan.
It's not like he didn't know.
Hello.
He just wasn't aware.
I just wanted to.
Go ahead.
I thought it was funny that he had to mention my elven background. They still thought that was kind of like a bullying trick back then. So funny.
I told you he had his salt flat observations by this time.
Yeah, but he didn't have his portfolio.
He wasn't running around with it. He was just check me out.
Yeah.
Say that the argument Brenda was bringing to the table was, where's the definitive proof of gravity? And they say that there isn't one, but that's not how science works. And what she was trying to explain was that you need to demonstrate in order to explain it, which isn't really science. In other words, you can't explain gravity; you can only demonstrate it.
Well, yeah, and also a massive amount of helium mass, which has.
Somebody told me that guy died. That's Haunted House.
That wasn't Haunted House speaking.
That was Haunted House, yeah.
Was?
Yeah, but
He
anyway,
died, bro.
I thought he was. Somebody told me he died. I don't know if that's true or not. Anybody know?
That's the first time I'm hearing that.
Yeah, there we go.
When? When did that supposedly happen?
I don't know any of the details. I was in a Validation Boy live stream really quite late at night. It was about 2 a.m. And it just turned to that subject for whatever. I think VB has now started to cover true crime. And for that reason, it turned to that subject. And there was just a list of people that had died. Because I was like, oh, not that many people have died in Flat Earth. And then somebody started listing them all off. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about him. Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. And then when it got to Haunted House, I was like, oh, really? He died too? And then, a few of the people that I knew had died were listed off. But then at that point, people in the VB chat were just trolling and, saying that Validation Boy had died and, things like that. So there's suddenly all sorts of names getting thrown around at the time. But it struck me, and I'm pretty sure I did double check and ask, and the person that had given me the list, I was like, are you sure that's correct with Haunted House? And there was one other, I can't remember now. And he was like, no, I'm not just messing around and trolling you. Those people are actually dead. The other one, because someone else in the chat was when Flat Earth Fucker came up. They're like, no way, Fucker's dead. And they're like, no, he is.
Yeah.
Apparently dead. And I was like, yeah, no, I confirm that one. As far as I'm aware, he is now deceased. So you're like, okay, maybe Haunted Houses. I was unaware of that. But there was others that, like everyone else, was trolling me about. They're like, well, Lord Stephen Christ died in jail. Did anybody else know that? Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did.
Right, but I didn't. So when I'm like, really? LSC died? They're like, yeah, ages ago. I'm like, oh, right. Well, you didn't get much fanfare for it.
Yeah, he finally died for our sins.
A heart attack, apparently.
Well, if that's true about Haunted House, then rest in peace, man.
Exactly, if it's true, but you don't want him to turn up tomorrow and go, excuse me.
Yeah, that's why I said if it's
While your
true,
eulogy was delightful, I'm actually not dead.
Well, where is he normally active? Does he still make videos?
Back to the video, please.
No, can we talk about death a bit longer?
Before you go, thank
It's called
God for
community
special without
update.
containment argument.
I thought we'd dwell on this for a few moments, but clearly not.
Right.
I
Right.
said
If I was going to explain gravity, I would say I would say that it's, or at least I would make up that it's some kind of intelligent force, like a smart force.
No. Come on.
But I wouldn't say.
But the presence of the effect.
Well,
Actually, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, in true to form. No.
Yeah, you're right. That is Haunted House. I recognize his voice now.
Yeah, blunt as ever, Arwin, and rightfully so. Some sort of smart, intelligent force. I hate to speak ill of the dead if he is dead, but no, that's just bollocks.
Went in the direction of trying to say that it's a smart
Let's not
force
jump
because
too far.
there is evidence
sort of
saying-
proven. It's just
If
not,
you
you
fill
don't
the-
just
if
have.
you fill
The
the
thing is, you don't have
basketball,
any
for
proof
example.
as to what causes this, and all the assumptions that say that you know what causes this are all theoretical and totally unproven, except for your Cavendish experiment and all
he
that
said
nonsense.
They don't know much about it.
Orbits of Mercury and all that.
The one true force in the universe is electricity. That's for sure. And there's
No,
a book
but
on this
effect-
called Gravity's
I'm
a Myth by
I'm not
Robert
saying
O'Tay.
that you know what causes
Very
it.
good book.
But the effect can definitely be measured out and proven through
The acceleration.
We're dealing with
gravity
weight.
displane, basically.
It's
like
just
the
another
diving
word for
plane that
buoyancy.
will-
We're
if
dealing
you
with his
go at a certain
acceleration.
speed, then the effects of gravity will
Why
negate
can't we
and
call it
also
buoyancy?
causing the effect
One at a time,
buoyancy
guys.
and
Is that it from Tim
This
Ossman?
is
Is that was-
This
it's
is
so
so relative density.
Okay, is that it, John? On? Oh, he's gone. Okay, well, I'm going to round it out there.
Why?
Well, can you do what Neil said? Neil said, can you go over the gas pressure without containment argument? For
Can't have
people
gas
who are
pressure.
listening to the show.
You can't have gas pressure without a container.
And there
Thank you.
No, Neil said, thank God for the gas pressure without a containment argument. Otherwise, we're talking about stand on the frickin' moon.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We'd be talking about men fading out in a clear, transitional edit on the ISS and saying, look, it's all edited. Or we'd be talking about blue screens behind Tim Peake when one of the old Bush ex-presidents was wheeled around in some control room, and there's them editing the footage with a literal blue screen behind him, with all crisscross hash marks behind him. And you're like, that's what we'd be focusing on. The fakery. We'd just be anomaly hunters. That's all we'd be.
Yeah, but pointing out that fakery sometimes is fun. I mean, come on. You got things teleporting in and out, people teleporting, people on wires doing bad kung fu work. I mean, it's great sometimes.
That's why we got glove dumpsters.
I've even seen gorillas in space.
That's why we have glove dumpsters.
Well, I kind of was alluding to that, right? That's what they did, right? Back in the day, they'd find all the anomalies. I remember them watching, before Globebusters, you had something called the ISS Watch, also pioneered by Jaron. And what they would do, the same crew of original Globebusters, although it wasn't called that, would just pick up the ISS live stream, because somebody had once told Jaron that you can just watch Earth from space from the ISS 24-hour live stream. So like, nah, I'm going to start watching it and seeing what they actually do on this live stream. So, just go back on YouTube searches and just type in I think it was just ISS Watch. They might even be called ISS Watch Globebusters. I can't remember the exact titles of the videos. But you go back and that's all they did. They're just hunting anomalies in that terrible live stream of Crapovision 24/7. And it's not 24/7 was the main purpose of what them, watching it to see how long they actually do broadcast for non-stop. And a lot of it was just empty blue screens of nothing. Oh, the link's gone down. Oh, so it's not a 24-hour stream, even if they're obviously faking it, and we would now say there's no ISS. There's a light in the sky that they've ascribed this studio-based drama. But that's it, but there's no sky vacuum for this light to be inhabitable. It's not a spaceship. It's absurd. Meanwhile, we can't waste our time now going through anomalies and saying, look how this guy fades out, look how this guy drops his keys when he's supposed to be in 0G, look how there's a glass of water next to them as they're floating around. That was the best one over the most recent. I'm sorry, you're right, Chocolate. It is fun. Did you see the glass of water one?
It's more than fun, because the normie is...
Did you all see that one? The one with the glass of water?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. That is a good one. It's more than fun. It's part of the journey, though, because the normie sees that, and then if they're in front of one of the audience members here or us, we're able to say, yeah, they get you started on the journey because there's these contradictions within the narrative, but you want to know why none of it is real, and then you give them the bone-crushing arguments we give. I got you. So I could be stuck there and go endless hours with a guy as to how that's happening versus using this argument to where it nullifies it even being a real thing. Correct. And so it's just part of the journey. You have to school people, because we all got schooled.
And this is where we do have something in common with some of the Globers, because again, like Tim said, there are a lot of Globers who don't believe they went to the moon, right? So it might be not a way in, but I don't know, just like a bridge, right?
It is
to
a
some
bridge.
of these guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Normies will ask it, why would they lie? Why would they lie? Yeah. Well,
yep. Made a song about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Part of the stuff we get asked is, and we asked ourselves, why would they lie? Well, you still don't know. But what this is useful for is demonstrating that they are lying. Like I say, it's superfluous when you get to the flat Earth argument, frustrating in a way for if you're trying to have a flat Earth argument. But along that journey, and even looking back now, it's like I say with the glass of water recently in the Chinese moon landing. These things are funny for us. They're amusing, and they must wake up normies. It must wake normies up.
No, I don't think so. So, saying how they're faking one aspect of travelling to space in a sky vacuum doesn't debunk travelling to space in a sky vacuum or the notion of orbits or any of it. So I see it achieving very, very little.
Well, those are the steps that I took, and look where I am.
You underestimate a seed of doubt will grow into a tree.
I don't know. I was thinking about this on the walk to the garage today. So we had to get our car fixed after a long journey in it. Of course, it's old. Anyway, on the way down, I was thinking about Guardians of the Galaxy. So I just changed the bulb in the projector and I wanted to test it. So wife had Netflix on, so I was like, I'll just stick a movie on and just sit through it for an hour and a half or a couple of hours, and that'll test that the bulb is actually fine. It's not going to do anything weird in the middle of a show. So I watched Guardians of the Galaxy till like 2 a.m. Anyway, throughout the movie, all that I kept thinking about was that recent video we covered. Do you know the guy with the building blocks, where he shows how the foundation of the
Jenga cosmology.
Jenga cosmology, exactly. Well, throughout the movie, what was ringing through my mind was, although I'm not trying to decry what Russian Vid says or any of the work that he does when he points out truth in movies and lies on TV, I'm not trying to decry that. I'm just saying that the overarching reality is that movie in particular, and lots of others like it, just brainwash you into all of the notions of the foundational Jenga that we saw in heliocentrism. Your suspension of disbelief is being reaffirmed the entire time with all of the different concepts of evolution in that particular movie. The whole premise of the movie is one guy playing God and taking animals and taking them through a rapid process of evolution. So like, okay, well, that's not ticked off the box. They've got obviously gravity boots that are going to stick them to the ground with the force that gravity is. You know, every little aspect of heliocentric indoctrination traveling through space. The whole premise is Guardians of the Galaxy, and the galaxy in their depiction is space. Well, when you talk about things like debunking the flaws in the footage, you can understand how someone can still retain all of the heliocentric indoctrination and just say, I do believe that this imagery is faked. But then you end up with someone like Joe Rogan talking about the dark side of the moon and the space aliens that they had to hide from the public. You know, they just invent a new story.
Yeah, a lot of them will come up with that new story, that new spin, like, oh, they went, but they didn't tell us how they went. Like, there's all types of variations that they'll come up with. But at the end of the day, there's a reason that now they have to come up with an excuse, right? Now they're the ones pitching a story to cover up for the people that they supposedly believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get you. And like you say, we've all had to take that path, haven't we? We all got here, and whether we wanted to eat it or not, the feast of nonsense was there.
Well,
go on.
We know what we know what the final curtain is, because it's all around us. They're going to introduce aliens, which then no one could argue that space exists. Now, the aliens, in my mind, are demonic beings. They're not aliens in this heliocentric model. So yes, things are going to happen. And everyone who even is a flat earther will say, well, maybe I was wrong, because look, we got this extraterrestrial here. You know it's going there.
Plus, I had a good old time watching Bart Sbrell get slapped around by astronauts. I'd be wondering, like, why are these guys all acting like that? What the hell's going on here? Right? Just that human characteristic of somebody who's supposed to be a hero. Kids are looking up to these people, and somebody's just going up to them and saying, hey, can you swear that you did what you're being hailed as a hero for? Nah, get the hell out of here.
Speaking of which,
chocolate. We were just passengers.
we were just passengers. Did you see that Russian Vids has actually built up a little relationship with Bart Sbrell? Had you seen that?
Yes, I have.
So based on Russian Vids being a devout Christian and his more than willingness to disseminate that within his rhetoric, if you want to call it that, on his videos, Bart Sbrell's pricked his ears up and gone, we have a common interest here. I'm also a devout Christian. So on the first interview that Russian Vids did with Bart Sbrell, he explained, like he did with Pat Steer actually, no, I'm not a flat earther. However, because of the mutual respect we have with our following of Jesus, I am willing to give you an interview, even though we are starkly opposed in terms of your belief in the earth being flat and mine in it being spherical. So the relationship that he's built up was quite admirable. I was quite impressed just with Russian Vids in general to have obviously persisted in building that relationship there. Because, obviously Bart Sbrell's very much against us as flat earthers, to say the least. But see that there's been a bridge built by Russian vids, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's very against us, but he's very against the moon landing. That's the end.
Let me give you a contrast. Recently I switched church fellowships because I had a one-on-one with the pastor on the subject of what the Bible teaches and the heliocentric model versus geocentrism in the Bible. And then, of course, it led to flat Earth and all that. And because of a letter that was produced on something I never did or violated, because I don't go proselytizing a church, any of this. In fact, I don't even, unless it's presented to me, I don't even talk about it with anybody. I had to write a letter saying why I can't stay in a church run by this pastor, even though we have in common a belief in the Bible and Jesus, because I can't respect him anymore. Because when I said, okay, can I see the evidence why you say what you say? He says, no, the debate is over. And I said, well, no, the debate should start because you might help me see the truth if you feel I'm being lied to. I'm willing to show you my evidence, my research. Why aren't you willing to show yours? And he refused. And so at this point, I told my wife and family, I said, I can't sit under a teaching of a person, even though I know he's a Christian, who's fooled on this subject and still have respect for him when he won't even back his claims on this subject. So we might have other things in common, which we do, like Bart Sabrell and Russian vids might. But you know what? Eventually, it's going to come to a head, and it did with me. And so I got to stand by the word of God. And if a person's not going to back up their debate points, how do you respect a person like that?
I don't dispute that. I agree. I agree, and it is comparable to Bart Sabrell. And inevitably, that relationship being built by Russian vids will fall apart eventually on that basis. I don't disagree. That's inevitable. However, in the meantime, there's plenty, we've just discussed it, to offer from Bart Sabrell, especially when we're on the topic of space being fake. We talk about how it's fake and then expose that path that everybody here took to see the fakery for ourselves, a lot of it exposed by Bart Sabrell in that instance. So the fact that Russian vids can extrapolate that out from Bart Sabrell, who's the primary source, pass it on to his audience, and hopefully walk away without an argument happening, without him being tempted to say, oh, by the way, it is flat. Because if he can resist that temptation, it's just, they part on good terms. There's no love lost between them. There's a mutual respect that's been built that will hopefully be retained should he ever need to do it again. Because, Bart Sabrell will still have the same useful information 10 years from now for the sake of argument. So you can see that would be the case like with your pastor or whatever, priest or whatever. But in this instance, I don't think Russian vids is seeking not fellowship or maybe fellowship or the guidance of, he's just passing on the information which is valid and worthwhile.
No, I know. No, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying I, as a Christian, have common beliefs with other Christians that are biblically based. When it comes to this subject, there's a clash of ideas. And I just want to have a conversation. Where do you get your facts that this is all real? When they refuse to have a conversation and they're in the position of leadership. Now, if it's just another Christian going to the same church, I would not have left. But it's the head pastor, and he doesn't want to back up what he's saying. And then to give me a formal letter saying that if I ever talk about this, I'm going to be given warnings because it's seen as proselytizing. I said, listen, Pastor, flat Earth doesn't save anybody. Jesus does, though, so I don't proselytize, never have. Take this letter back, and let's pretend you never gave it to me because I've never done it for you to accuse me of it. And he just said, well, I just want you to know.
Just next time,
yes.
Much more visually effective and with more impact.
Well, it wasn't just well, let me finish. The context is important. This letter would go to anybody on any subject, but in this letter, it did bring up these things that are on the internet, and one of them was the flat Earth theory. And so then I said, well, obviously, I'm here because I thought we were going to have a meeting based on a meeting I had already, that some of the concepts and arguments I gave were very interesting and first time heard by the associate pastor who recommended that I should share it with you. I didn't think I was coming to a meeting to be handed a letter. I thought I was coming to a meeting to discuss these new forms of arguments against the lie of heliocentrism versus the truth of geocentrism in the Bible. And we never got it because the debate is over, is what I was told. And I said, debate hasn't even started to even be over. What are you talking about? And then because I realized it isn't just a church member I could sit by and say, okay, we believe on these things that do matter about salvation and we disagree here. I could have fellowship. I have that with my family members now. But it's the pastor, it's the leader. And if the leader is going to be this stubborn and not even go through the process of searching what's true, then how could I sit there Sunday after Sunday and respect them? So out of that reason, I left. Lack of respect. I'm not saying he's not a Christian. He is. He's deceived on this matter, though.
If you write down all of the things he's deceived on, just nail him to the church door. That's what I would do.
Reformation.
Well, it is.
I'm sorry, Tim. So he gave that letter. He gave you a list of things that you're not allowed to talk about or bring up. And
in the letter, their concern was proselytizing on any subject, forcing someone if they say, I don't want to talk about it. I said, well, I've never done that. Like if I go and change the subject matter, say something else, and I insist, send text to the person. They don't want that. And I say, I'm totally in agreement with that. Totally in agreement with that. If someone doesn't want to listen, hang on, I'm almost done. And so I said, I'm totally in agreement. I haven't done that. Why are you giving me this letter? Well, this flat earth theory is one of them. I said, I know, but I've never done that. If I talk to someone and they show interest, I'll keep talking to them because they want to talk about it. But if they don't show interest, I don't pester them. So why do you think I'm guilty of something I haven't even done? But anyway, what's the point? Why don't you show me? I'm almost there, Neil. I said, but that's not the point. The point is you're saying it's a not debatable matter when it is. There are tons of people in our church that are flat earthers, and you're trying to cover it up and say it's not debatable. When I'm saying, where's your proof where you've won the debate? Can I see it? No, it's not debatable. Well, that's a respect issue there. Now you can go, Neil.
Go on, have the last word, Neil.
I was going to say, you only got that letter because of flat earth. See, what they did in Times Square Church, they didn't give out a letter. They brought an astronaut to give his testimony at the pulpit. And that was it. You couldn't question it because now you're outright saying that the authority, who was also a Christian like you, has validated this by saying he was one of the last people to orbit or land on the moon, whatever it was. So at least you got a letter.
Right, with that, I'm going to say another massive thank you to Discord and G+. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!